I am the ghost of the Uchiha.
Yo guys. This is a new series called What If Naruto Was a Mad Scientist? Long ago the world was full of amazing technology, things ninja could only dream of. For centuries this ancient art was lost. That is until a nosy blonde found it in a dusty tome. Now he follows in their footsteps, those of a mad scientist. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 1. Say hello to Naruto. Mad scientist. It was a normal day in the city of Konoha, the sun shining down as it traveled its celestial path. People walked the streets, performing whatever various chores they had or needed to do. Birds chirped, the leaves rustled, and a young, blonde child was running for his continued safety from a group of very angry and very sooty civilians. Sadly enough, this actually was a common occurrence, including the obscenities, slurs, and death threats that were being thrown at the young boy as he ran as fast as his short 5-year-old legs could carry him. "Come back here, you demon. We'll get you for all the trouble you've caused. Ya have to catch me first, ya slimy bastards." If there was anything that Naruto had learned from his constant run-ins with the citizens of Konoha, it was a broad and deep grasp of the more colorful parts of language. He also learned that if he didn't pick up his speed, the people behind him were going to catch up with him rather quickly. And that would lead to another something he had learned early in life: pain. He had come to the quick conclusion that he did not like pain. However, for the first time since he could remember, this was a time that Naruto was actually being chased and cursed out for something that he knew for a fact he did. To be honest, despite the fear percolating through his brain and the adrenaline deadening the soreness in his leg muscles, he was actually enjoying the feeling of being blamed for something he did. Before, people would just ignore him, ostracize him, or, if they paid any attention at all, lob verbal and physical abuse in his general direction. But now, they were recognizing him for something he had done. It was just too bad that what he had done was cause a localized area of drunken hysteria. The event had been the release of built-up tension accumulated over his, admittedly short, life. Naruto was tired of being picked on, tired of having others dumping their frustrations upon him, tired of being turned into the whipping boy for any who decided that he was at fault for any misfortune brought into their lives. What had sped up the process was that today had been a particularly bad day for the young lad. First, he had woken up to discover that whatever instant ramen he had left had gone bad. The growls and gelatinous appendages that emerged from the containers gave proof to that. Luckily all it had taken was a good few stomps, but that lowered the chances of them being edible from, perhaps maybe, to none at all. Next, when he had left his apartment building, G-san had given him a whole building. Was that cool or what? He had been splashed with a mixture of water and mud by a trio of large dogs bounding down the street after a cat, a slightly older girl with strange markings on her face chasing frantically after them. Those clothes had been relatively clean too. Then Ichiraku's had been closed for the day. Apparently Tucci, the shop owner, was having trouble filling an order for the rotund Akamichi clan. So he wasn't even able to get breakfast from there. Naruto's stomach had not been happy about that. It scared a little girl with lavender, doe-like eyes away as it roared for sustenance. Then when he had walking to a local market to perhaps buy some cheap grub, he had tripped over what seemed to be a large anthill before tumbling down the hill and then smack dab into a wall when the road spilt. To make matters worse, those ants had attacked him. He still had the bite marks, even though he had the tendency to heal fairly rapidly. Then when he finally had reached the convenience store, he discovered that their instant ramen supply was currently non-existent as there had been some complications during the stocking and all of it was destroyed beyond repair. Naruto didn't know what a monotone dichromatic Pocky addict was, but he did know that it had to be bad if the creature had wiped out all Pocky reserves by itself and ramen just happened to be unfortunate collateral damage. So now, there he was, hungry, cranky, ramen deprived, itchy, noodle denied, and quite honestly pissed. Oh, did we manage? He really wanted his ramen now? So when he came upon a bar, he absently noted that there were already people in it, even though it could have barely been past noon at that point. His interest was piqued further when he recognized some of them as the jerks who had decided at one interval of time when they were wasted, to lay a few goose eggs on his skull. Now normally Naruto tried to stay clear of these kinds of people. They obviously had no problem with attempting to harm him, Even with all the warnings that those cool Anbu guys gave every time they tried something. But something had changed, something pivotal. Naruto was angry and decided that some revenge was in order. You step on the fox's tail, and you end up the one cursed. Naruto may not have known this, but he was actually quite the large fox. And his tail had been stepped on plenty of times. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened next. It did take a smoke bomb Naruto had filched off the last Anbu who had saved his hide to create the disturbance. Ninja tools were very much awesome. Which now brings us back to the present of Naruto running from the mob of civilians, the drunk, hacking, smoking mob of civilians. A smile formed behind the animal mask of the Anbu watching the whole debacle from rooftops. Really, the Kyuubi kid really could cause some chaos when he wanted to, but at least this time it was against people that were well deserved of it. Surprisingly, Naruto was actually keeping a fair distance between him and the group. Even though he was obviously less physically fit than the adults in pursuit, their shaky equilibrium and lingering irritation from the smoke bomb was putting them all on equal footing. The Anbu would only interfere if he felt like the situation required it, and he truly felt like the kid was holding his own. When the front of the crowd careened into a stand after sliding on the marbles the boy had stealthily left on the street, causing a huge chain reaction that left the entire crowd cursing and moaning in aggravation, the dog-masked individual decided that, yes indeed, the boy would do all right. But, oh dear, those men up ahead did not look kind at all. Naruto let out a giddy laugh as he watched his pursuers end up in a dozen-person pile-up. Oh man, that was great. He had never had so much fun in his life. If this was what it was like to screw around with others, he could do this for a long time. Not looking where he was going, Naruto let out a pained gasp of air as he rammed into something very big and very solid. He crashed backwards onto his butt, wincing at the fall. It wasn't even a second later that someone grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and yanked him up and off his feet. Hey, punk. The voice belonged to a vicious-looking man, a scar running down his eye. He was accompanied by a couple other men, each one looking just as dangerous as the first. What do you think you're doing, running into me? Now look, you ruined my clothes. Naruto gulped. I don't think Aniki's gonna let you off so easily. One of the other men exclaimed. Gonna have to pay him back for damaging his outfit. But I don't, that's right, ya little brat. You're going to pay me back for my ruined clothes. I think 500,000 Ryu sounds fair, don't you think? 500,000. Naruto squawked. I don't have that kind of money. Oh? Too bad. Guess I'll just have to get it some other way, huh? The man sneered, the tip of his tongue poking from the corner of his mouth. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a kunai. Carefully, almost lovingly, he drew it across Naruto's face, tracing the whisker-like marks. How about I give you a couple more tattoos like these? Hey, Ani. The last hoodlum said suddenly. What is it? I recognize that kid. Yeah, it's the demon brat. Ya know, the one who. Oh, you're right. How convenient. Say, you think they'd give a bounty for his head? Nah, probably wouldn't give much. That's only if we go through the legal channels, idiot. But I'm sure there are some people who'd be willing to part with some of their hard-earned cash if they knew we were the ones to get rid of the fox brat. Naruto, hearing their rather gruesome conversation, did the one thing he could do. He started to thrash. Let me go, ya assholes, let me go. Oh, we wouldn't do that. You're our meal ticket. Why would we gurk? Aniki. Ani. The head hoodlum glared at Naruto in unadulterated fury and agony. The boy's foot lodged squarely between his legs. Naruto stared back with just as much ferocity. I told ya to let me go. It is said to never underestimate a cornered fox. It is heavily implied to never underestimate a cornered fox with the proper access, at the proper level, and possessing the proper limbs to heave your family goods back to where they originated from. Obviously the man had never heard of either of these sayings. Pity, as they're pretty important ones to follow, especially when your village's history revolves around such an animal. The man coughed, his voice elevating into a soprano. Kill the little son of a bitch. Rend him from ear to ear. Naruto took a step back as the remaining two pulled out kunais of their own. Well, crap, he couldn't exactly run away from this. It was by pure luck and a couple of ingenious maneuvers that he had gotten away from the last crowd. But these guys were fresh, pissed, and, most importantly, not viewing the world through a monochrome kaleidoscope. Oh yeah, he was more or less screwed. Yar, this looks like a problem, doesn't it? The men paled as a black-clothed Anbu instantly appeared between them and Naruto. His dog mask reflected the sunlight, creating a visage that was both cute yet insanely creepy at the same time. Why don't you young men run along now? I'm sure you can make better uses of your time other than bullying Naruto-kun here. The leader hissed as he got up on one knee. He knew about Anbu. It was impossible not to know about the Black Ops teams that helped to run Konoha and supported the Sandaime Hokage from behind closed curtains. However, he couldn't just let the brat to get away unpunished. His manhood demanded it. Actually, his manhood demanded he'd see a doctor immediately. One of them felt like it was about to pop. Don't be afraid of this guy. Look at him, he's smaller than us. Indeed, the dog Anbu looked like he was barely past his teens, nearly a foot shorter than them even with that unruly mop of silver hair. Emboldened by their boss's words, the two leapt forward, brandishing their kunai with reckless abandon and with no form or style at all. Yar, yar. The Anbu put a hand to the back of his head as he shook it. Why is it that idiots never take the advice of others? Looks like you're the idiot here. With that, the two stabbed forward, catching the elite nin in the torso. Their glee was quickly cut short when his body poofed into a log. Ha! You two can take a nap now. The Anbu slashed his hands backwards, cracking them both of the back of their necks. With nary a sound, the two collapsed into sweet unconsciousness. The shinobi turned to the ringleader. And as for you, he forebodingly cracked his knuckled and advanced on the man. Thus followed one of the most delightful ass-kickings Naruto had ever been privileged to watch and not be part of. When the Anbu was finished making a human version pretzel, he clapped his hands together and walked back over to Naruto. The boy grinned. Thanks, Inu ni-san. The man held back a chuckle at the endearment. No problem, Naruto-kun. He ruffled the boy's hair. Oh, but before I forget, the Hokage wanted to talk to you. Sarutobi-jii-san. About what? He didn't say. Oh, well, Naruto's eyes narrowed as suspiciousness filtered through his mind. On one hand, the Anbu had saved him, just like the man's comrades had saved him many times before. However, he was still one of Konoha's ninja, and they tended to treat him worse than the normal citizens did. Still, he eyed the man up and down. He was short enough. Naruto was pretty sure he could reach with his foot. He nodded. Okay then. Right. The Anbu hoisted Naruto up onto his shoulders, capriciously smiling at the yelp of surprise the young boy gave, before creating a quick hand seal then shinned him into the Hokage's tower. Naruto's eyes widened as he boggled at the distance they had just crossed. That was awesome. Ninjas could do those sorts of things. If he had the ability to travel like that whenever he wanted, he'd never have to worry about people chasing him again. He could just swoosh his way out of there and leave all of them in his dust. Naruto turned to tell the Anbu just how cool that was, but was surprised to see that he was already gone. He shrugged. Well, maybe he'd see Inu ni-san again. Fate was funny that way with him. Up in the celestial realm, Fate slapped a hand on his knee as he fell into tumultuous laughter. Oh, he was going to have so much fun with that boy. Now if he could only get Lady Luck to relinquish even the slightest hold she had on Naruto. The woman was so possessive when it came to him. Naruto literally kicked in the double doors to the Hokage's office, loudly announcing his arrival. Sarutobi-jii-san, you wanted to see me? The god of shinobi looked up from the paperwork, a pleasant smile etched onto his face. It was always such a pleasure to talk with Naruto. The boy was constantly in a state of hyper joy and glee, at least when the reality of his life didn't weigh on his shoulders. Now if he could only keep his decibels below the level of a shuriken on sheet metal, he would be even nicer to be around. Hello, Naruto. How have you been? Naruto plopped into the chair in front of Sarutobi's desk, his frame comically tinier than the furniture. I'm great. I just played this awesome prank on some bastards who used to beat me up. It was hilarious. Sarutobi filed that fact away for future references. He really had to do something about the people who consistently ignored his laws dealing with Naruto. Perhaps he could convince Ibiki to hold a few private demonstrations on the ability to keep one's mouth shut. Maybe that Mitarashi girl could help as well? She was inordinately good at getting people to follow her sugar and blood-coated suggestions. Or she could just burst their minds with sex appeal. Either way worked for him. Really? That's not very nice. But Jii-san, Naruto whined. They deserved it. Maybe they did, but that doesn't give you the right to enact vengeance on them. HMMPH. Still think it was a good thing to do. Now, Naruto, you have to promise me that you won't do something like that again. The blonde was quiet, refusing to meet Sarutobi's eyes. He had his cheeks puffed out, his arms crossed in what was quite the adorable pout. Naruto, fine. So do you promise? I promise I'll think about it. The Hokage sighed. Well, he supposed that was the best he could do. Knowing Naruto, and more specifically the boy's parents, the stubborn streak he showed would not decrease by any means. He would just have to take the boy's words and hope for the best. After all, how much trouble could one boy cause? Lady Luck passed off the bottle of vodka to Fate as she watched the timeline. She was already good and plastered by this point. Really, why did people always underestimate the flux of chaos? It only served to bite them in the ass later. She glanced at Fate, who was already succumbing to the treachery of alcohol. A bite in the ass. Sounded like fun, so why did y'all want to see me? Naruto idly fidgeted in his seat. He found it so stuffy in the Hokage's room. Papers and scrolls and paintings and other things. Why couldn't Sarutobi have cooler things like ramen? Or maybe some ramen? Ignoring the drool collecting at the corner of Naruto's lips, Sarutobi mildly shook his head. No real reason. I just thought I'd catch up with you. I haven't seen or talked to you for a month or so since I've been busy with my duties. He folded his hands together and leaned forward, his triangular cage hat dipping down. So how are things? They're fine. I'm doing well in my apartment. It's a bit lonely being the only one living there, but it's also cool since I can do whatever I want and no one will yell at me either. That's all well and fine, Naruto, the older man chided. But you have to take care of that building. It's yours, and you have to learn to treat what belongs to you with dignity and respect. Do you understand? I get it, GG. Naruto decided not to tell Sarutobi about the several holes he had punched through the walls when he was chasing earlier versions of his mutated ramen cups. He was sure those wooden beams weren't all that important, right?
What else? Naruto continued to explain how his life had been going. He deliberately left out just how badly he was treated by Konoha's citizens at times. He would only worry Sarutobi because of it. Besides, he promised the cage that he would think about what he had done in his pranks. And if Naruto was anyone, he was a person who kept his promises.
He thought about it, and he decided to screw them. Unconsciously, his smile took on several foxy qualities as Naruto continued to babble about his daily schedule. Tuchi-Jii-san and Ayame-ne-chan were fantastic. They gave him ramen on tab. On tab. He could actually pay them later for ramen today. To Naruto, that immediately elevated their status to people he would take an explosive note for. Oh, and the fact that they treated him like a human being and not just some kind of trashy nuisance helped too. Ayame still couldn't help but glomp the boy every time he showed up, cooing about how adorable his whisker marks and fur-like hair was. Naruto was her personal snuggle toy. Wisely, he decided that it wasn't that bad of a role. Sarutobi couldn't help but smile at the animated way that Naruto spoke. He knew that the boy had had a difficult life. The townsfolk misguidedly blamed him for something beyond his control. The council believed him to be the demon that was imprisoned inside of him, and he was living on his own when no child actually should. Naruto was strong, but at the same time weak. Sarutobi was just glad that the boy wasn't allowing his weaknesses to overcome him. Their reunion was interrupted when the office doors suddenly swung open, a tall man with sharp eyes entering the room. Hokage-sama, there is something urgent I must discuss with you. Sarutobi blinked. Really, he couldn't believe the arrogance of the man. Then he rid himself of that notion. Of course he could. The Uchihas were all a bunch of pompous windbags. The only people with a stick further up their collective asses was the Hyuga clan. And being the head of the clan, Fugaku was the biggest jackass of them all. Really, strong bloodlines weren't a substitution for common courtesy. What is it, Fugaku-san? It's something I must discuss with you privately. He threw a glance at Naruto, his eyes narrowing perceptibly and his nose twitching as though he had looked upon some rotten carcass. You should probably rid the room of those not needed. Naruto instinctively put the man at the top of his shit list. I'm sure whatever you have to say could be explained in the company of others. You did barge in on our meeting, after all. Sarutobi relished the flash of irritation that appeared and disappeared on the Uchiha patriarch's face. It looked like the man was constipated. Which probably wasn't far from the truth, as the Uchihas thought it noble to have as much emotional range as a mentally scarred boulder. Backup and all that. Fugaku had the good grace not to follow his initial prerogative and try to threaten the leader. This was much too important to try and ruin otherwise. The very fate of the Uchiha clan depended on it. It has to do with my eldest son. Oh, what about Itachi? It would appear that his luxuries have gotten the best of him again. You mean that? I'm afraid so. Sarutobi sighed and rubbed his temples in a circular fashion. He could already feel the oncoming migraine. He needed to up the dosage on his painkillers. They just weren't getting the job done recently. Who was it this time? It was a store that belonged to the Akamichi clan, sir. The Hokage froze. Oh, crap. That was a problem. He quickly looked at Naruto. I'm sorry, Naruto, but we have to cut our talk short. This is something that requires my full attention. Naruto shrugged. No problem, Jii-san. I'll see y'all later, okay? Yes, well, Sarutobi's words died in his mouth when he noticed the glass of water on his desk. Ripples were beginning to bud their way out from the center. Oh dear, that close this fast. Well, then, I'll see you again, Naruto. Take care. See ya. Naruto leapt out of the chair. Before he exited the room, he turned to Fugaku's back. Feeling incensed by the man's behavior, he pulled an eyelid down and flipped him the bird. He didn't know what the gesture meant, but figured that it was an appropriate one. It took Sarutobi all he could not to react to the scene. When Naruto did finally leave, he was almost shoved to the side as a very large and round man barged his way into the office. He could hear shouting when the doors closed. Hokage-sama, you. Now, Shuza, I'm sure we can discuss this rationally. Rationally, that asshole Spawn completely wrecked my store. As if your relatives needed any more reason to eat. The Akamichi clan is not fat, we're pleasantly plump. Plumped ass is more like it. Why you? Several flashes of black dashed through the door, including the receptionist who decided it would be much more entertaining to watch the inevitable scuffle than listen from outside. Naruto cocked his head. Adults were so weird, he just didn't. A thought struck him. If most of the Anbu were busy trying to calm down the infraction between the two clan heads, that meant he was free to go look around. He could go exploring. He rarely had the chance to do that, as he was always escorted out of the tower whenever he was done. It's a sad fact, but his childish logic was true. People were more worried about what destruction could be wrought between the fight of two clan heads than what could be caused by a small child with a mind like a malleable steel trap and several astral tons of chakra lodged in his coils. Yeah, that would cost them. Naruto walked down the hallways, noting that the tower was just like any other building, and especially his. It was big, empty, and smelled of musty farts. He stopped when he came upon a large door. Peeking inside, he sneezed when dust invaded his nostrils. Eyes widening, he stepped inside. Whoa, there were so many scrolls around. There, on the table, under the table, shoved in the scroll cases, rolling on the floor. They were everywhere. This must have been Sarutobi's private library. This was where all those cool jutsu that the old man knew was kept. Being at such a young age, Naruto didn't know much about ninjas or their various techniques, but to his underdeveloped psyche, only one thing stood tall. Ninjas were cool, and thus their techniques were cool as well. Naruto grabbed the nearest scroll to him and opened it up, his wandering eyes roving all over. It was awesome, it was great, it was amazing, it was unreadable. Oh, wait, that's right. He couldn't read just yet. He was only 5. He hadn't even entered school. Sighing, Naruto threw the scroll away. That killed the suspense and intrigue for him. No matter how powerful any of the jutsu may be, they wouldn't do a lick of good if he couldn't understand them. Sighing again, he decided to just leave. Maybe he could find a store that actually had some ramen in it. As he turned, his foot caught on a wayward scroll, causing Naruto to pitch forward and crash into the end of one of the scroll cases. Scrolls and dust were scattered everywhere, creating a sneezing and coughing fit the likes of which he had never had before. When it finally cleared, he sniffed, groping at the floor to try and pull himself up. His hand came upon something stiff and leathery. Blinking, Naruto looked closer. There was something lodged behind the case. He gave an experimental yank and fell back, the object clutched in his tiny hands. It was a book. Not a scroll, but a book. It was huge, a monolith of literature, about a foot long and 4 inches thick with a hard, leather-bound cover. It also weighed a ton. He was surprised he was able to grab it in the first place. On the cover was a picture of what looked to be a spark of lightning, surrounded by letters he obviously could not decipher. Opening the book up, he skimmed the pages, his eyes widening with each sheet flipped. This book had pictures. And really neat-looking pictures at that. He had no idea what any of the strange contraptions were, but they seemed like they would be really fun to play with if he ever found them. Something clicked in the back of his mind. Sarutobi Jii-san wouldn't mind if he borrowed this, right? He had so many scrolls, and this book was forgotten behind the shelves. No one would care if he took it. Nodding at this train of thought, Naruto shoved the book into his pants, covering it up with his shirt. No point in not taking precautions, right? Precautions for what? Theft? Naruto ran out of the library and out of the tower, heading for home. He had some reading to do. Fate snored drunkenly as he rested against Lady Luck's breasts. The lady didn't even care as she was rather inebriated as well. And why shouldn't they be? They had just changed history, they deserved the break. Oh, wait, you mean they weren't supposed to do that? Oh well. Another day came. The sun shined through the windows of the apartment room, landing on a tanned face. The recipient of the day's blessing grumbled in agitation, cuddling further into the cool, hard metal against his cheek. Don't want to get up just yet. A high, tinny voice broke him from his ephemeral slumber. Boss, ya gotta wake up. It's morning. Go way. He absently swatted a lightly tanned hand at whoever was bothering him. Boss. No answer. Okay then, boys. Boss doesn't want to get up. Initiate, wake lazy ass up, protocol. Boss. Get up. With the sound of a million sirens suddenly cutting through the morning air, Naruto awoke abruptly, holding his hands to his ears in a futile attempt to blot out the noise. When it slowly cut off, he turned his head to the cause of the cacophony. There stood a miniature version of himself. Barely a foot tall, the robotic Naruto looked at him with neon blue eyes, the letter A soldered onto its chest and a wire trailing from its backside. The loudspeaker sunk back into its chest, the compartment around it closing as it did. It opened its rounded mouth, looking like a cheap ventriloquist doll. Good morning, boss. Morning, Naruto yawned. He glanced at the turbine engine he was holding onto. His right hand dug deep inside it with a screwdriver stuck in his fingers. He retrieved his hand, cracking the joints to gain back feeling. What time did I fall asleep last night? It was this morning, boss. You've only had a few hours sleep. Oh, really? He yawned again, adjusting the goggles so that they were perched on his forehead instead of in front of his eyes. He had been slaving over the new engine for the main breaker. If he could only figure out the input-to-output ratio, he could make the Naru-kun's efficiency rise tenfold. Status report? Another Naru-kun waddled over, this one with a K on its chest. All Naru-kuns are in satisfactory condition, boss. The house's security measures have not been breached, and all experiments are stable. There was a slight increase in energy usage at 500 hours for a few minutes, but it's nothing that exceeded the safety limits. Anything else? He grabbed the turbine and turned it over, looking for that last bolt he had been working on. Experiment G11 escaped its holding cell earlier. He raised an eyebrow. And? It ate Naru-kun's I through J until we were able to detain it and dig them out. They were not exceedingly damaged. Just give her some ramen. That usually calms the sweetie down. I'll go down there later and have a talk. If she wanted to get some fresh air and exercise she could have just told me. You have been ignoring it and its friends lately, boss. Naruto shrugged. Deciding that he had done enough with the turbine, he set it carefully down and stretched his arms. Grinning at the pops that accompanied his joints moving out of place, he settled down and tightened his hand into a fist. He took a deep breath. Ah, he loved the scent of toasted iron and oil in the morning. It was such a great thing to wake to.
Today feels like a good day, for science. He was echoed by several other Naru-kuns who began to pop up here and there after his declaration, their higher-pitched versions of his voice in agreement.
For science, for science, for sci. Naru-kun-A's statement was cut off as its head exploded. Naruto blinked again as oil and hydraulic fluid slid down his face and shirt, soot floating around the air. A's distinct lack of a head bled out fluids as sparks ignited at random. The other Naru-kuns watched as Naruto formed a crooked smile at the spectacle. I can fix that. We know, boss. Iruka groaned as he scanned the room full of genin hopefuls. They were there to pass the exam and become full-fledged ninja. He could taste the anticipation each of them exuded with an anxious aura. After all, the final exam was tomorrow, and it determined whether or not they would make it to the next step of their education. Such young children, and they were to become licensed killers at the age of 12. But that wasn't what was bothering Iruka. It was the person who wasn't there that was the cause of the large lump forming in his chest. Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Iruka knew that Naruto wasn't a bad kid, per se. He was actually quite the nice boy. He wasn't at all like the demon that had nearly destroyed their village years ago. He knew pain, knew suffering, even if most of his self-inflicted suffering was a dearth of ramen. The boy was the class clown, screw up, and overall dead last. But it was his status as the trickster of Konoha that brought the most annoyance to the Chunin teacher. Painting the Hyuga estate neon orange. TPing the entire financial section. Letting loose all of the Inuzuka's ninkin on a wild and destructive chase through Konoha after a cat? A fake cat at that? What the hell would the boy do next? Yaha. See if you can catch me, ya jerks. Something orange flew through the open window to the classroom, followed by two black objects. The orange blur melted into a young blonde in orange clothes, cruising on a board that effortlessly floated above the ground. The blonde's eyes widened in shock as the board refused to slow down, and he crashed into the opposite wall with a loud bang. Naruto picked himself up from the ground. Damn, I really need to work on a way to put brakes on this thing. His frown turned into a grin as he turned to the people who had been chasing him. Thanks for the escort, Anbu-sans. I think I can look after myself now. Iruka groaned louder this time, slapping his face with an open palm. His partner, Mizuki, gave a sympathetic smile. What did he do this time? One of the Anbu, a female by her voice, turned to him. He defaced the Hokage monument by painting it. We were in pursuit when he came crashing into here. Her tone had an hint of almost affection to it. It was clear to a select few that she found the idea humorous in a way. Naruto. What? It needed a fixer-upper. It was so dull. I made it better. Iruka sighed and signaled at the Anbu. Thank you very much. I assure you that I will find a suitable punishment for him now that he's on school property. The Anbu nodded and disappeared back out the window. Iruka turned on the boy, his face twisted into flushed anger. What the hell were you thinking? Tomorrow is the graduation exam and you're wasting time doing pointless pranks? You've failed the exam twice already. You really want to repeat a third time? Pay. Naruto puffed out his cheeks and looked to the side. His aggravation growing, Iruka pointed at the board Naruto had pinned to his side. And what did I tell you about making those odd inventions? You should be spending your free time studying more, not creating more stupid and useless trinkets. Hey, my Yukabeita is not stupid. It's a perfect amalgamation of fuinjutsu, metallurgy, and water and wind jutsu. It's awesome and not a waste of time. You'll see. You'll see my genius. What kind of genius can we see from a dead last? Naruto turned around at the voice and the laughing that soon followed. He couldn't pinpoint the exact person due to the roaring laughter and mocking expressions all the other students gave, but he could guess. That self-serving smirk, those folded fingers, that retarded duck-ass haircut. Sasuke, another genius, another person granted wealth and revere. Naruto couldn't begrudge the younger boy that. The boy really was a genius, in every aspect of the word. But Naruto would show him, he would show him what true genius was. They'd see, they'd all see. Bawahahahahahahaha. Iruka watched as a maniacal light appeared in Naruto's eyes, his shoulders shaking from suppressed laughter. The boy really was such an oddity. He didn't act like a ninja, and he certainly didn't dress like one. Unlike most of the students, who were dressed in clothing that were at least somewhat suitable, Naruto was anything but. For some reason, he adored the color orange. What kind of ninja wore orange? What kind of ninja also wore purple, red, white, or any other not-so-natural color for that matter? But we'll ignore that for the sake of continuing the story. Naruto was decked in an outfit that was nearly completely orange. His thick overalls and shirt were the color, his leather fingerless gloves and heavy-duty boots barely different due to their slightly browner shade. The worst of all had to be the long orange jacket he wore over everything. It draped over Naruto's shoulders, reaching down to just above his knees. It was outlined with black and had a large, swirling symbol on the back. The only thing Iruka could think of that didn't destroy the ninja image completely was the conglomeration of oil and soot stains that suffused nearly every inch of his clothes. With the dirty touch, the orange was lowered in conspicuousness from outright, "Here I am. Look," to just above, "Air, high?" Then there was the boy's fixation on machines. It wasn't just a hobby, it was an obsession. Every time he saw the boy out of class and, to his frustration, in class, Naruto was tinkering with something. And they weren't even ninja tools. Besides, he didn't believe Naruto even knew half the jargon that came spewing out of his mouth. What kind of kid who was barely past puberty understood high-level sealing methods? Iruka frowned. He liked the boy, but too much of anything was no good. Naruto had to learn how to focus. Time for a henge test. The dejected moans and yells did not deter the Chunin. Everyone line up. You must transform into a perfect copy of me. As the students lined up, Naruto considered his choices. He was horrible at the academy ninjutsu, but he could put to practical use the new jutsu he had created. Being a man of science, he was always looking for new data to apply to his experiments. This was as good a time as any. When his turn came, he made a hand sign, molding chakra into his technique. What came of the jutsu was decidedly not a mirror image of Iruka. Long, flowing blonde hair, cut into ponytails, trailed down a sensuous body. Luscious curves fell over blemish-free skin. An impressive bust and a sexy backside complemented each other as they perked up for all to see. The only thing obscuring the view of the sex bomb of a blonde's nether regions were tastefully positioned clouds of chakra. Naruko, the result of the dangerous Oiroke no Jutsu, blew a flirty kiss as she bent over at the waist, giving an impressive shot of her wickedly sinful form. The room was silent. Then it erupted with between shouts of unrepressed lust and torrents of blood shooting everywhere. Naruto reverted back to his original form, glad that his goggles had prevented any blood from getting in his eyes. Really, the ingenuity of appealing the base functions of the human being was more efficient than he'd ever thought. Naruto blinked at the sea of blood surrounding the unconscious bodies of various male academy students, 2 chunins, and a gobsmacked legion of girls. He removed the goggles from his face, wiping an arm across them to clear them of blood. I'd call that experiment a success. Now if he could only just outrun that advancing throng of pissed-off fangirls for doing what he did to their Sasuke-kun, he'd be just fine. He wasn't able to escape from gangs of highly trained ninjas for nothing. Too bad they had nothing on an irate fangirl. Naruto watched as, one by one, the students left to take their final exam. Yesterday had passed by quickly, and it was already time for him to yet again attempt to gain his Hitai 8. Iruka had taken him to Ichiraku's after he had regained consciousness, giving him a small pep talk about the upcoming test. Of course, this was after he made Naruto clean up the Hokage monument. It wasn't really that hard. He had made the paint extremely soluble for a reason. Still, he was a bit worried about the test. Bunshin was his worst jutsu, even more so than Henge and Kawarimi. He just couldn't seem to form the needed chakra shape. But he did have other ways of getting around such deficiencies. Idly his fingers outlined a ball in his coat pocket. After failing so many times, he had found a way of emulating the Bunshin. Yes, he was sure to pass, and thus he was one step closer to his dream. He would become Hokage, and then... Hearing his name called, Naruto was broken from his thoughts. He exited the communal room and entered the private one where Mizuki and Iruka were examining the students. He saw them sitting at a table, a number of headbands all neatly aligned row by row. Subtly he took the orb and dropped it down his pant leg. All it would need is a couple of words and then. Iruka kept a frown on his face. As much as he wanted Naruto to pass, he couldn't play favorites while he was in his role as teacher. He cheered Naruto on as much as he could the day before. Now all he could hope was that Naruto would take the encouragement to heart. You may begin, he said in a neutral voice. Right. Naruto crossed his fingers. Bunshin no jutsu. Something clicked, and the subtle whir of gears and servos came to life. The orb, hidden behind Naruto's boots, flared softly as runes crisscrossed their way across the surface, ending on a glass lens. The lens lit up, light flitting through and angling upward. 3 perfect images of Naruto flickered in existence, mirroring their original stance. They were foggy and slightly translucent, but they were unmistakably copies of the sun-kissed blonde. Iruka couldn't believe it. Naruto had managed to perform the jutsu. Naruto grinned. He knew it would work. Giving a 2-fingered victory sign, the clones copied in suit. How's that for a Bunshin? Iruka shook his head and smiled good-naturedly. Congratulations, Naruto. You. A screech filled the room like nails on a chalkboard. Smoke drifted up from behind the boy. Then, in fit of scorned karma, there was an explosion, metal fragments shooting every which way. The clones shook and then flopped out, vanishing from sight. Iruka looked on confusion, seeing how Naruto's expression became more sheepish with each silent moment. Then his face began to twist as he was riled up. Naruto. Naruto had already bent over, collecting the scraps that were once his beautiful machine. He was muttering something about the volt capacitor when he turned his face up to meet Iruka's. His expression was a mix of annoyance, fear, and resignation. What? You never said what kind of Bunshin I had to make, just that I had to make one. Then what the hell was that? A virtual image supplanted on the air via bent light beams through an isonomic prism after refraction off a concave mirror. He blinked at the stupefied looks on the others' faces. What? It's all basic physics and chemistry. Naruto, Iruka sighed. He didn't really want to do this, but, you fail. Naruto's shoulders sagged at the declaration. It was like putting the final nail on his coffin. Even with all his glorious inventions, if he had to wait another year to become a ninja, it would put a serious damper on his plans. Iruka. Mizuki gave a cautious smile to his partner. He waved at Naruto. Even if it wasn't technically a bunshin, he still managed to make clones, and 3 at that. Also, it's his 3rd time here. We could let him pass. Naruto could feel a ray of hope, but it was swallowed by the clouds before it even snuck through them. Iruka rigidly shook his head at the notion. I can't do that. The entire point of the exam was to see if he had even the most basic of chakra control. It's all but impossible to become a great ninja if you don't have that one simple attribute. The ninja world is tough, and you can't enter it with such a crucial defect. He turned to Naruto with sad, rueful eyes. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't pass you. Naruto gave one simple, sorrowful frown and turned to leave. The jingling of metal could be heard in his pockets. Iruka watched him go, that same apologetic expression stuck on his face. Mizuki allowed a smirk to escape. Perfect. All according to plan. Wasn't one of the first things a ninja learned that plans never survive upon contact with the enemy? Mizuki was about to take very painful remedial lesson. Naruto looked around. He was deep inside one of Konoha's many forests, the spot where Mizuki-sensei had told him to go after acquiring the scroll. He never would have imagined that he was allowed a makeup exam. Why hadn't Iruka-sensei said so? He could have cut out all that baloney with the chakra control and just let him do it. However, he knew Iruka was only doing what he thought was for Naruto's own good. The aspiring genin had heard his teacher's story from Mizuki. Iruka was just like him, the class clown, dying for any form of attention. It was like looking at an older version of himself. To be honest, Naruto didn't think that would be too bad. But then again, this did seem like a deal that had to be kept secret. Steal a scroll from the Hokage's personal library. He had to elude Anbu and patrolling Junin at every turn. It was a lot harder than he initially thought, but being Konoha's most tricky and chaotic individual wasn't just a bunch of hot air. The only slight hitch in his stealth was coming across Sarutobi. But that obstacle was easily passed with an application of his new henge variation. He noted that the age range didn't just apply to males near the prime of their sex life, but appeared to be just as strong many years later as well. The nosebleed into a coma was proof enough of that. It was accidental data, but data that he would enter into upcoming experiments. Data was always a good thing. The fact that it had potential for any pranks he would go for later was just an agreeable side effect. Tumbling down on the ground, twigs and leaves crackling under his weight, Naruto broke the wax seal on the scroll and pulled it open. So he had to learn at least one of these jutsu before Mizuki arrived. Bah! Piece of cake for a genius. His eyes immediately narrowed at the first one that appeared. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Well, crap. An improvement upon the original, Kage Bunshin was obviously a much harder variation. But then, as Naruto began to read further into the semantics of the technique, his slightly closed eyes inverted and became wider instead. This is perfect. Rolling up his sleeves and snapping his goggles on, Naruto went to work. Much later, Naruto was on his back, heaving and greedily gulping in huge quantities of air. That had been tiring. He had already figured that it had taken a massive chunk of his chakra and he was surprised that he had had so much in stock. He very much doubted anyone his age was even close to what he had just exhausted. Heck, he was pretty damn sure most Chunin didn't have what he had. But still, the Kage Bunshin would be vital to increasing his workload. The limits that were put on him by his single body no longer existed. With the clones, his work efficiency and the quality of his inventions would make leaps and bounds. He couldn't wait until he put them to practice, and then his dream would be a fraction complete. All he needed was a little more. His gleeful machinations were put on the back burner when Iruka landed next to him, his eyes and mouth twisted in an angry scowl. Naruto, what in the world were you thinking? Hey, Iruka-sensei. Naruto looked up at the upside-down figure of his teacher. I was wondering if you'd find me first. You idiot. Do you know what you're doing? What do ya mean? I'm learning jutsu from this scroll. I mean, I've only learned one so far, but it's one hell of a doozy. Iruka pointed at the overly huge scroll lying by Naruto's side. Do you have any idea what that scroll is? It's forbidden. It was sealed away for a reason. What possible excuse could you have for stealing such a valuable and dangerous item? Naruto pulled himself up into a sitting position, dragging the scroll across his lap. Huh? What are you talking about? This is my makeup exam, isn't it? You know, the one that, if I pass, I can graduate. His head was tilted, his face scrunched up in bewilderment. Iruka paused. There was sincerity in Naruto's voice. He hadn't just taken the scroll on some flighty whim. He had taken it because he honestly believed if he did, he would be able to become a genin. But who would give him such a false idea? Naruto? Who told you that? The boy stood up, clutching the scroll to his chest. Mizuki-sensei did. He told me to get the scroll, come here, and learn at least one jutsu from it. Then he would pass me. His face faltered. You mean that was just a joke? Mizuki did. Iruka's ears twitched. Naruto, get down. He shoved the young boy to the side. The whistle of kunai becoming more pronounced as they slammed into his body. Naruto fell to the ground, his already worn clothes getting additional dirt ground into them. Iruka was pushed backwards into the small hut near the clearing, nearly pinned to the wall by the onslaught of pointed weaponry. Although he was pierced in multiple areas, his thick clothing and chunin jacket prevented any of them from being anywhere near fatal. A low whistle echoed, but this one wasn't from a kunai. Mizuki landed on a branch above the clearing, strapped to the hilt with oversized shuriken and other throwing weapons. He grinned when he saw the scene. Not bad, not bad. I aimed for the kid but got a bigger catch instead. Mizuki. Iruka barked. He coughed as he pulled the kunai from his body, some blood slipping from his mouth. What are you doing? TCH. But this fish seems to be too gangly for me to eat. Looks like bigger isn't always better. Mizuki swung his head over to Naruto. Naruto, give me the scroll. You passed the test. His tone was soft, much softer than it should have been after nearly killing a man who was just that morning his shinobi partner. What the hell is going on? Iruka-sensei. Naruto. Whatever you do, don't hand the scroll over to him. Why, like I said before, that scroll contains kinjutsu that are too powerful for any one ninja to handle. That's why it was sealed away and stored in the Hokage's vault. Mizuki must have wanted it for himself, so he used you to get it. He's a traitor, Naruto. A traitor? I'm not a traitor, brat. I just wanted what I deserved. Do you know what kind of power is in that scroll? More power than you could possibly imagine. And it's all mine, as soon as I pry it from you cold fingers. I won't let you put one stinking hand on him, Mizuki. Iruka stumbled forward, his legs weakening from the blood loss. If he didn't get some first aid soon, there was a high possibility he was going to be in some serious trouble. You? You of all people would protect him, Iruka? Ha! That's a laugh. Naruto gulped, his mind whirring with activity. What do you mean? Don't you get it? He's hated you. He's always hated you. Just like everyone else, you're nothing but a polluted stain on our lives. Naruto's eyes grew wider at this exclamation. No, that couldn't be true, could it? Iruka couldn't have possibly hated him all this time. He just couldn't. He had bought Naruto ramen. How could Iruka hate him? Mizuki sneered at the confusion that was eating its way through Naruto's irises. Just a little bit more and it would be done. You want to know why? Mizuki, stop. He ignored Iruka. 13 years ago, the dreaded Kyuubi no Kitsune came to our village. No one knows why, but it ruthlessly attacked us, turning any in its way into little more than dust and blood. The only way to stop it was to have the Yondaime Hokage sacrifice his life. I know that. It's one of our most important history lessons. But what does that have to do with me? Steadily, slowly but surely, a dark thought began to creep its way into Naruto's brain. Mizuki, no. What you're saying is forbidden, Mizuki. You don't think he really killed it, do you? The air froze. All was still. A being of that much power. You really think a human could actually permanently defeat it? No, of course not. So he sealed it away, in a little, baby, boy. The world stopped turning. Do you get it now? Why the villagers hate you? Why so much animosity is directed at you with no clear reason? You're the one the Hokage sealed the Kyuubi into. You're the new incarnation of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. You killed everyone, including Iruka's parents. It's always been you. With that, he snapped off one of the oversized shuriken on his back and gave it a stiff whirl. Iruka watched. He watched as Miyuki let go. He watched as the shuriken flew towards Naruto's prone form. He watched it inch closer. And then he acted. Shielding the boy with his body, he waited for the inevitable pain as the shuriken entered his back. It was the least he could do for Naruto. So much pain, so much misguided hatred. It wasn't his fault. It never was. Naruto was Naruto. He wasn't the Kyuubi. He was just Naruto. All he could do was protect the boy with his life. The pain never came. Instead, a dull clang ran along his back. He opened his eyes to see that Naruto had reached his arms around him. The boy's eyes were hooded, preventing Iruka from seeing what emotions were running through them. He let go of the older and larger man and walked around him, towards Mizuki. Mizuki couldn't believe what he had just seen. First he had gone for Naruto, but that moron Iruka had blocked his shuriken with his body. It didn't really make a difference. It was just one extra person to kill. But then the shuriken refused to even hit him. Instead, the boy had reached around Iruka, hands positioned where the shuriken was aimed to hit. And then, the gloves grew. Metal arched out like a blooming flower, forming a circle a foot wide that reflected the shuriken from its path and into the hut behind them. It was still extracted, perched on Naruto's left hand like a buckler. Naruto refused to raise his head. He addressed Mizuki in a deadened voice. Is that true? Am I really the Kyuubi? No, Naruto, Iruka interrupted. You're not the Kyuubi, it's just inside of you. The prison is not defined by his prisoner. Iruka-sensei? A mystified tone entered his voice. I'm so sorry, Naruto, the Chunin sobbed. I must have caused you so much pain. I was just like everyone else, I did hate you. But now I see you're just like I was. You're lonely and sad and just want to find a place in the world. And I didn't help you find that place. I'm sorry. Maybe if I was a better teacher, or just a better person, it wouldn't have turned out like this. Naruto was silent. Then his shoulders began to shake. Choked noises escaped from his throat. Naruto, I'm the Kyuubi but not the Kyuubi. I'm the Kyuubi but not the Kyuubi. I'm the Kyuubi but not the Kyuubi. Naruto brought a fist to his mouth before he threw his head back. His lips curled into a wild grin. He bellowed out laughter, shocking the two teachers. So that's what this was all about. The Kyuubi? I've got a monster, a demon, living inside of me? Naruto, this is awesome. What? I told them that they'd see my genius. I knew I was special but not this damn special. This only makes things easier for me accomplishing my dream. You'll see, I'll become Hokage. And then, I'll use that as my stepping stone and take over the world. BwahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahahehNaruto was taking the whole Kyuubi deal a little too well. And now he was saying his dream was to take over the world. Was the boy always this off-kilter? Mizuki, however, was not taking it well at all. He was pissed as all hell. That exposition was supposed to drive the little demon over the edge, not cheer him up. Grabbing his spare shuriken, Mizuki launched it at the laughing Naruto. What are you laughing for, brat? Naruto's grin became more devious. Lashing out, he swung his right fist in a straight motion at the shuriken. Mizuki scoffed. Was the Jinchuriki suicidal? Not at all. Experiment initiated. Ketone, Kei Tabakuro, Doriru Sutairu. The glove shifted. Metal that was once attached to the knuckles began to rise and rotate. It formed into a large screw that began to rapidly spin. The drill made contact with the shuriken, spinning and carving the weapon into pieces of scrap metal. Soon, all that was left was a mangled lump of what used to be a deadly throwing star. Naruto pumped his fist into the air, the drill still turning. His grin became capricious, and he smirked at Mizuki with a foxy wink. The experiment was a success. Iruka had no idea what to say. He had never seen something like before. Sure, there were weapons that could change shape, but nothing like what Naruto's had done. And ketone. What did metal release mean? Naruto, what was that? Didn't I tell you? Naruto hopped up and down on the balls of his feet. The metal shield and drill retracted back into the gloves. He pounded the fists together. Those were my so-called, useless trinkets. They are the best jutsu in the world. The Kinzoku Jutsu. He nodded his head in affirmation. And with them, I'll take over this puny planet. Metal techniques. Don't think this over just yet, Fox. Mizuki pulled out a few more kunai and readied them. Just because you have a few tricks up your sleeve, doesn't mean I'm defeated. Oh, I'm not done just yet, Mizuki-sensei, he accentuated the suffix, his voice a lethal sing-song. And they're not tricks. They're something you've never seen before. You wouldn't mind if I used your help for experimental data, would you? Just try it. Oh, I will. His smile became devilish, his tone oozing honey and poison. The drill and shield emerged from their lairs once again. Iruka had never seen Naruto like this before. It was like a completely different personality had emerged from the boy. But it wasn't something new. No, if there's anything an inventor can do, it's try things. The mask had simply fallen off. Naruto the mad scientist had arrived. Dodge this. Mizuki threw the kunai. Ketone, Roketo Kutsu. Naruto tapped his heels together. Treads burst out from the bottom and revved. He shot forward with a blaze of fire emanating from the back of his boots. Using the shield on his left arm, he blocked the incoming attack and leveled the drill with his right arm. Mizuki dodged into the air, jumping over the boy. Naruto dashed forward, right towards the shack. But instead of crashing into it, he placed a soul right before he impacted. Smoke and the smell of burnt wood rose from the contact. Naruto was thrown upward. He pushed off, twisting and slamming the back of the shield into Mizuki's head. Not able to dodge, the man tumbled to the ground as Naruto made a less than graceful arc and slammed, stomach first, into one of the overhanging branches. Choking back the spit, he nearly swallowed down the wrong pipe. Naruto dropped back down to the ground. He turned to Mizuki, who was picking himself back up. Grinning at the enraged snarl on the man's face, he stated, "That's one. I've still got a bunch more tests to run. I think one for every kunai you hit Iruka-sensei with is adequate, don't you? Brat. I'm gonna kill you." "No, I don't think that's gonna work." Naruto put his hands together, recalling the gloves. "But if you wanna try, then allow me to introduce you to my associates." He plugged his fingers together into the ram seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The forest exploded with orange. Hundreds upon hundreds Narutos popped out of thin air. Each one was wearing a sickening, saccharine grin on their face. Mizuki promptly felt his bowels void themselves. "The experiments are about to begin," one of the Naruto said. "And each of us is going to have our own," another exclaimed. "It's probably more than what happened to Iruka-sensei. But what do we know? We're the dead last of the academy." The multitude of Narutos each pulled out a singular orb from their jackets. If one looked close enough, you could see that the runes inscribed on the balls looked suspiciously similar to those written on explosive seals. Experiment initiated. The resulting explosions wiped out nearly a square mile of the forest. "Iruka-sensei. Nay, Iruka-sensei. What?" Iruka clumsily woke from his impromptu nap. After watching Naruto create enough firepower that would make an explosive expert jealous, he had passed out when a stray rock had conked him on the side of the head. Looking around, he shot to his feet but then instantly fell back down when he became dizzy. "Where's Mizuki?" Naruto jerked a thumb over his shoulder at the burnt, smoking, but still breathing body of Mizuki as he lied unconscious by a tree. "I might have gone a little hard on him, but he'll survive." Iruka breathed a sigh of relief. As much as he was glad that Mizuki was defeated, he didn't want Naruto to become a killer already. But, he had more important matters to attend to. "Naruto, where did you learn all those skills?" Naruto tilted his head. He pursed his lips. 8 years. "Ha! I've been learning, testing, and making those jutsu for 8 years, ever since I found this book that described them." "What are Kinzoku jutsu?" The boy grinned. "Metallurgy infused with seals that provide a numerous amount of abilities, services, and effects depending on how they're created. Would you mind showing some to me?" Naruto tapped the side of his head. "Sorry, Iruka-sensei. Trade secret. Can't let you know all my skills for taking over the world." Iruka remained silent for a second. "Naruto, do you really mean that?" "Mean what?" "Taking over the world." "Of course," he replied as though it was the most obvious answer. "I'm gonna become Hokage and then conquer the rest of the continent and then whatever lies beyond. I'll show everyone just what a genius I am, that I don't have to learn their ways just to be great. I'll create my own jutsu, and become better than anyone, even GG." "Is that so?" Iruka looked at Naruto. "Close your eyes." The boy looked at him strangely. "Go on, do it." Naruto closed his eyes. He could feel Iruka try to remove his goggles, but he grabbed his hand and gave a small squeeze. Iruka paused before smiling and then wrapping something around his left arm. "Okay, you can open them now." Naruto looked down. There, on his bicep, was a Konoha headband, the steel plate sparkling through the few remnants of dirt. He looked at Iruka with unbelieving eyes. The Chunin smiled. "Congratulations, graduate." The newly appointed genin gaped before he closed his mouth. Closing his eyes again, he twisted his mouth into a smile. The experiment was a success. Chapter 2. Time to take over the world. The fevered pitch of children yelling, laughing, arguing, and overall being themselves echoed in the classroom. Even though it was still fairly early in the morning, the energy levels of the newly minted genin were bursting to newfound levels. To be fair, it wasn't every day they got to become legal adults at the age of 12 or so. Too bad they didn't quite realize all the ramifications and responsibilities that came along with it yet. Naruto yawned softly as he nudged his way through the door. He had pulled another all-nighter. After discovering the Kage Bunshin, he had applied it to every practical and theorized idea that he could for the past week. The results were simply amazing. They were exactly like him. Same anatomical structure, same astral signature, same behavioral and thought patterns, even the same little quirks right down to the nervous tick around his right eye that formed whenever he started to deal with volatile chemicals. everything was the same. Sure, they couldn't take hits worth a damn. One particular clone had taken an iron spike to the shoulder and, poofed. Just like that. But with the balanced nature of having hundreds of yourself working at all times, they could easily pick up the leftover slack. Also, they were able to keep their own train of thoughts and perform various jobs without needing to verify or check their programming constantly. They were like the ultimate walking, talking analytical device. Even now he had a horde of them ripping up his apartment building and renovating it back to somewhat acceptable living conditions that met the health and zoning laws. Reinforcing the structural integrity, rewiring the infrastructure, finding any loose-end experiment he may have, and most likely did, left lying about. He hoped that the 3B prototype hadn't somehow made its way off the premises. The sheer power held in that fist-sized device could level an entire block easily. The fact that it only took one press of a button as he had not encrypted the chakra signature made it even more dangerous and probably stupid to not prioritize its finding. Idly, Naruto wondered if his neighbors had been carefully keeping track of their insurance premiums. There was only so much the Naru-kuns could do. They were the main security and surveillance force for his home, but they ran on a power source they had to be constantly connected to, and with their small stature, doing what the clones were doing was very far off for them. So, back to the clones. He had dumped a huge amount of chakra into their creation, and it was becoming more and more apparent to him that his reserves were indeed gargantuan in proportion to many other ninja. At least now he knew the reason why. Kyuubi no Kitsune. That glorious bastard, bitch, creature, thing. Sure, it had nearly annihilated his village. Sure, it had turned almost all of Konoha's citizens against him. And sure, it had made his life a living hell, but still. He had the most powerful Biju in existence as his tenant. Praise the heavens. The experiments he could do, the knowledge he could gain, the absolute power that was dangling from the ends of his fingertips. He had it all. This could only make things easier for him in the long run. It could only make his dreams of world conquest that much easier to grasp. Just from this simple fact, all of his plans had advanced years, decades even. With that much power, his ambitions would be realized and fulfilled. Now if only the stupid thing would just talk to him. Naruto was smart. Insanity had nothing to do with one's intelligence. Naruto was a good person. Virtue was relative after all. Naruto had all the qualities of a ruler, he wanted to be one. How much more do you need? So why wouldn't the incarnation of evil, death, and the inevitable apocalypse just let him in and command it? Arg, it was so frustrating. It wasn't a complete loss at least. Now that he had the knowledge, he could work on a way to contact the being. On to other matters, the glory and hell that were minions. Konohamaru was a wet behind the ears brat, but he had the makings of a valued minion. Naruto grinned slightly as memories of yesterday's encounters trickled into his consciousness. The Hokage's grandson was young, malleable, untouched. He was like a lump of fresh clay, just starting to be molded by those around him. All Naruto had to do was poke in at different intervals and make some slight changes to the whole. Nothing on the levels of brainwashing. Naruto found that entire concept distasteful. Who'd want people following them because they were thought of as a god or something? That never ended well. Cults usually fell on the end of mass suicide or genocide, and as the future commander of the elemental countries, having your people die needlessly was detrimental and opposite to your goals. But still, cultivating affection and some brand of loyalty within the lad would be smart. It was such hard work to find quality underlings these days. People just weren't looking for that job title. The boy had taken to his lesson of the Oroik no Jutsu like a fish to water, or a certain toad sonin to perversion, or a certain slug sonin to alcoholism, or perhaps a certain snake sonin to a less widely accepted form of perversion. Hey, everybody's got needs. Naruto never really expected his customized henge to really come in use, but after seeing the effects it had on that elite nin, Ebisu, was it? He had come to the conclusion that polishing his basic academy jutsu was in order. After all, he had to keep a proper image in front of his horde. He was the boss, wasn't he? Somewhere across the dimensional planes, a toad the size of a large circus tent felt a multitude of shivers creep down his back. Looking around, he wondered why he felt as though 1,000 voices had cried out in terror only to be silenced. Shrugging, he turned back to his sake jug and took a long, hard swig. Bah, probably didn't have anything to do with him anyway. Of course, there was also the unexpected yet pleasant side effect to the Kage Bunshin that brought him even more glee. The clones retained all the experience and knowledge accumulated in their short existence and then transferred it back to the original Naruto. With that, he could cheat his way around hundreds of hours of training and crafting by ordering his clones to work on it while he worked elsewhere. Still, the sensations caused by his clones' dissipation were a bit. He sneezed as his sinuses suddenly flared. Right, bypassing that particular electrical circuit was not a good idea. Had to remember that. Thank the gods he had enough mental memory to rival even the public Konoha library's dusty storage rooms. He would not have survived as long if he kept making those same mistakes over and over and over again, instead of just over again the second time. He was still wondering what he was thinking when he retested the flame retardant material that made up his outfits, while he was still in it. Oh, right, live data. Almost stumbling into the classroom, he collapsed into the first free chair he could find. The last several of days had been tiring. Fail the genin exam. Learn some forbidden jutsu, beat a rogue chunin, create 1,000 copies of yourself, run every experiment possible on those 1,000 selves, put yourself into overdrive to revamp your living space. Naruto was working on only a few hours of sleep in the last 96 hours. His chakra reserves had been depleted Kyuubi knows how many times, and the only thing keeping him conscious was the concentrated coffee syrup he had been chugging like it was water. He was so sleepy. Luckily, he knew that simply falling asleep wouldn't disperse the clones. Apparently it had something to do with the particular brainwaves of the person, and the delta waves provided during the REM cycle managed to keep the cage bunchen up and running despite the lack of concentration. If he was forcefully knocked unconscious, however, there was nothing to ease the transition and it was like basically pulling the plug on the clone's life support. Laying his head on the table, he closed his eyes. He just needed to rest for a moment. Even the greatest of geniuses needed their sleep. Naruto was sure that once he got his energy back, he could continue with his plans and goals. Yes, the world was his for the taking. All was according to plan. All was. A random student noticed the bedraggled boy and made his way over to him. He didn't know why Naruto was there, but it was always a plus to make fun of the class clown. The adults constantly shunned him, and it was easy to guess why considering the boy's unhinged and loner demeanor. Naruto was always avoiding the other students. In this respect he was almost like the class heartthrob Uchiha. But unlike Sasuke, Naruto wasn't acting tragic or cool. He simply avoided everyone going on about how he needed total focus on fiddling with his devices. What a weirdo. Ha, Naruto. What the hell are you doing here? Only those who passed the exam are allowed here. He didn't receive a response, so he tried again. Yo, Naruto. A broken snore was his answer. Looking down, he blanched at the drooling that was going on. Naruto's face locked in a calm visage of slumber. Oh boy, he should probably leave the boy alone. Yeah, that sounded like a good idea. Just walk away slowly and out of my way. Like hell I will. The classroom went silent as two aspiring kunoichi burst into the room, one with pink hair closely followed by one with blonde. The pinkette made a victory pose as she let out a brilliant, shit-eating grin. Ha! Take that Ino pig. I was the first one in, so that means I get to sit next to Sasuke-kun. Che. The blonde stomped her foot in frustration before making it to a free seat in the back. The pinkette made her way to her prize. Enter the fangirl. A dangerous and highly volatile species, the fangirl should not be trifled with when attempting to hunt their favored prey, the elusive and irritating emo bishonen. Those that do tend to leave this world in a messy and painful way, thereby creating a warning for any others that may dare. The fangirl's only natural enemy is another of their kind, which leads to violent, both physical and verbal, confrontations that can only lead to wide area destruction and monumental property damage. However, in this particular case, there is something that is even more dreadful and dangerous than a fangirl in the middle of the hunt. Sakura looked down at the boy who was blocking the way to her beloved Sasuke-kun. She growled softly, a sound that made everyone shudder in fear. Naruto, move out of the way. Haruno-san. What? The boy who had failed to leave the area pointed at the Jinchuriki, his finger shaking subtly. Naruto's taking a nap right now, so maybe. The entire room froze. Only soft snores emanating from the lad could be heard. Not much was known about Naruto. Sure, his status as the village pariah was widely acknowledged, and there was obviously something off about him, but for the most part, he was rather secretive about his life except for the occasional fevered speech about his genius. But there was one thing that was well known to every student and teacher in the academy. You do not wake a napping Naruto Uzumaki. Unlike the resident Nara, who slept through pretty much every lecture or practical test that the academy had, Naruto's ventures into dreamland during class time were far and few between. He rarely paid attention, if ever, in class, but there was a large difference between being completely unconscious and simply not following the lesson at hand. When Naruto's nap was interrupted, bad things happened. Not bad things, bad things. You could literally hear the capitalization. The last person to suddenly wake him had his hair frizzed out from the electricity for weeks. Nothing could completely dissipate the shock given. And the entire time Naruto had looked around like nothing had happened before drowsily apologizing and then going to work on one of his tools. So Sakura was left at a conundrum. Either she could wake Naruto to move him and arrive at her Sasuke-kun's side and risk his wrath, or she could just cut her losses and try to corner the boy another time. Possible bodily harm or Sasuke-kun. Possible bodily harm or Sasuke-kun. Two tiny figures appeared on her shoulder, small copies of herself, both with labels written on their chests. One was self-preservation and the other was true love. You can't let something like this keep you down, TL exclaimed. If some little shrimp can stop you, then how can we make Sasuke-kun fall for us? Screw the little whiner. I want to live, SP cried. But doesn't Sasuke-kun mean everything to us? Not if I'm going to lose a piece of my hide in the process. But that's just a small sacrifice in our quest to show Sasuke-kun the true path of love. Forget your stupid love. I am outta here, come on, forehead girl. As SP tried to drag away Sakura by the ear, a monochrome hand jutted out and grabbed it. With an audible pop, the small figure exploded into a plume of dust. TL looked back to see a rather irritated and large version of Sakura with the words inner tattooed on her forehead. Screw both of you. We'll do anything to get Sasuke, and if the dead last just gets in our way then we'll just simply remove him. Shanaru. But we can't harm him. If we do, then Sasuke-kun will. Inner Sakura grabbed TL, grinning nastily. Are you gonna get in my way, too? No, ma'am, it squeaked. Good girl. Oh come on, we all knew this was going to happen. Now just keep quiet and enjoy the inevitable fireworks. Naruto. Wake up and move Before Sakura could even place a hand on Naruto's shoulder to shake him awake, she suddenly found a small orb hovering right in front of her face. She didn't even get to say one word before it cracked open and a fine, orange mist escaped from its confines, which was quickly inhaled by her. The rest of the room blinked at the speed things had happened. They hadn't even seen Naruto's hands move, but he had somehow thrown something in the air which had just exploded in the pinkette's face. Sakura blinked. A dreamy smile spread across her once furrowed face and she giggled softly. Hee hee, I'll take the purple kitten. No, I don't want the gorgonzola pancakes, so put the hammer in the pudding. Then she collapsed. Naruto blearily looked up from his position. When he saw that the rest of the room had grown quiet, he wondered what was going on. He then saw the unconscious Sakura. Pursing his lips in idle thought, he frowned. Hey, what happened? Nobody answered, too afraid that he would subconsciously target them next. When he found no one was coming to bat, Naruto shrugged, picked up the drug-addled girl, and set her next to him on the seat. He then swiftly fell back asleep. She tilted to the side, resting an open, drooling mouth on the Uchiha's shoulder. The boy grimaced, but he found it was easier to just ignore her rather than try and move her and gain Naruto's awareness. The boy was scary on levels even Sasuke didn't want to touch. And so Sakura achieved one of her biggest dreams. Too bad she was off in Happy Pastel Funland and wouldn't be able to consciously enjoy it. Slowly, so slowly, the minutes passed and Iruka entered the room. Okay, everyone, settle down and, he trailed off. Why was the classroom so quiet? Shouldn't these kids be happy that they passed the exam? Why weren't they jumping around like idiots and... He saw that Naruto was sleeping at his desk, and Sakura was drooling all over Sasuke's shoulder. Oh, so that's why. Did Haruno-kun try to wake Naruto up? The class simultaneously nodded. Right, let's just continue with our last class then. It's been a long time since you entered this academy, and I'm proud to say. Iruka continued with his obligatory spiel about the responsibilities of the new ninja before finishing up and switching to the team assignments for the class. He was proud of them all, especially Naruto. He was also just so damn grateful that Naruto was out and would be terrorizing some other poor sap instead of him. Team 7 under Kakashi Hatake will be Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. He looked at the inert and chemically subdued duo. Uchiha-kun, you can tell them their placements once they wake up. Sensei. The gruff statement was something that was not to be ignored. Yes, Uchiha-kun. Can I have a new team? Sakura's drool was starting to soak through his clothes. He didn't like the sticky feeling one bit. He also didn't like being paired up with a pink-haired psycho and blonde fool who was probably a closet psychopath. Actually, Naruto was quite open with his insanity. People just tended to ignore the signs. The large neon orange signs with sparklers and the fog machine. No, Uchiha-kun. HNN. Well, maybe he could dispose of them without anyone noticing and get put with a new team, or better yet, be a team all his own. It wasn't like he needed anyone else. But I don't want to play hanky-panky, Mr. Potato Head. Definitely not her. Naruto mumbled happily in his sleep. I'll show them all, it's all happening according to plan. The single gray eye glanced around the room. It was a mess of sheet metal, empty ramen cups, and various oil and mechanical liquids. It locked back onto the wizened man with the triangular hat. So this is where Naruto lives? Sarutobi nodded. It's a bit messy, but that says nothing for his mind. Unlike what many people might think, Naruto is quite clever and intellectual. He just doesn't quite fit the normal example of a genius. The man's eyes twinkled at some unknown joke. He cleared his throat at the look Kakashi was throwing at him. I assure you though, it would be best not to underestimate him. The silver-haired Junin rolled his eyes. And the reason you chose me? He can be troublesome at times. A perfect match for you, Kakashi. I think you'll get along quite well. The Hokage chewed on the end of his pipe, wishing dearly he could light it. However, he had been at Naruto's many times before, and from numerous prior experiences, he had found it in good taste, and personal safety, to not keep an open flame no matter how small. Plus, you'll also have the Sasuke of that Uchiha clan on your team. Ha! Yo, Jii-san. The two turned around to see a Naru-kun walk into the room and salute the leader of the village. What are ya doing here? Boss won't be back until late tonight. Oh, I was just showing Naruto's future team leader around. I thought that. Who? The small robot snuck a peek to the side, its eyes flashing as it seemed to realize for the first time there was another person in the room. I don't recognize this person. He's not in my security databanks. Initiating defense measures. Now, I'm sure it doesn't have to come to that, Sarutobi gulped, a small sheen of sweat appearing on his forehead. Twin red lights emerged from the top of the Naru-kun's head, a loudspeaker coming from its chest. The lights began to spin rapidly as red was poured all over the room. A booming voice ripped through the building. Warning! Warning! Intruder! There is a foreign entity in the building. Repeat, intruder! There is a foreign entity in the building. Purge! 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 The rumbling of many feet could be heard outside the room, and Sarutobi grabbed Kakashi by the arm. Perhaps it would be wise if we left now. Kakashi smiled lazily underneath his face mask. And what could the little toy do to us? Intruder! 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 Kakashi turned back to see an army of the Naru-kuns popping their way out of each little doorway, nook, cranny, and wherever else they could enter. Soon, the entire room was teeming with them. They all zoomed in on the man, their neon eyes flashing to red and orange from their normal blue. As one, they shouted their intentions, creating a resonation that shook the building to its very foundations. Initiate, crush face, protocol. Ch chick. Kakashi found himself staring down dozens of barrels, oversized rockets, and rather sharp-looking weapons. Those looked like they could hurt someone, as the room, and subsequently the window, exploded from the onslaught of the tiny death machines. He absently noted that the Hokage had disappeared somewhere in that short frame of time. Really, the man knew what he was talking about. He was called the Professor after all. Sarutobi watched from his safe position a mile down the road from Naruto's apartment building. A window had burst open in an array of glass and smoke, and he could see flashing and various explosions occur. He hoped the charred and smoking object that had just been propelled from the opening wasn't the body of the late Kakashi Hatake. It would be so much paperwork to try and hire another Junin that would be willing to look after Naruto. A ninja's life or paperwork. Obviously being Hokage for the second time had taught Sarutobi to organize his priorities. The room was still, quiet, a perfect moment of serenity and tranquility. Arg! Where is he? Okay, maybe not so much. Sakura stomped her foot on the ground, her frustration having already gotten the best of her and deciding to see if it could make another drive-by. She faced her team members. She still couldn't believe she was a team with Sasuke. It was the best thing that could have possibly happened to her. Now she actually had a real reason to spend all day around the boy. Instead of just stalking air, following air, bumping into him whenever she could spend all day cheering him on and looking at those dark eyes and pale skin and lithe physique and sweet ass. She cut off the daydreams before they got the bets of her. Inner Sakura had no such problem. A rosy tint involuntarily rose to her cheeks. Then there was the problem of her other teammate. Naruto. She understood why he was on the team. Each one had to be balanced, and her team consisted of the top kunoichi, rookie of the year, and the dead last of the class. With Naruto's grades there was no way he could be on any other team. But still, why? Naruto looked up from his device at the girl who was frantically rubbing her fists into her temple. That couldn't be very healthy or useful. Sighing, he returned to his work. Naruto adjusted the Hitai 8 around his neck. Although it was more commonplace to keep it on one's forehead, that spot was already occupied by his goggles, so he figured it would be best placed around his throat. Already that piece of metal provided a small barrier for his jugular. Though grim in his preparation, at least he thought ahead. The screwdriver stripped a bit off the screw head. 3 hours had gone by. 3 hours since all the other teams had gone off with their Junin senseis, leaving him and his cell to wait in the room until theirs showed up. He understood that perhaps there might have been something that could have happened, but really, it was common courtesy to at least attempt to be on time for people you would take care of for the next several years. He supposed he could get a little revenge for the matter. Walking over to the chalkboard, he picked up a stray eraser. The other two genin watched in interest as he then made his way to the door and shoved the eraser between the sliding door and its frame. Naruto, you really think that's going to work? Sakura asked, exasperation heavy in her voice. Our teacher is a Junin, the elite. They're not going to fall for such a simple booby trap like that. Were you even paying attention during the lessons on traps, Dobi? Naruto shrugged and placed his hands next to ears, fidgeting with something before he snapped on his goggles and went back to his invention. It's just a test. If it works I get a cheap laugh. If it doesn't then no harm done. Sakura and Sasuke's faces melted in disbelief. Could anyone really be that stupid? Still, they were a bit interested in what would happen. That simple prank could tell a lot about their future instructor. The uneven tapping of feet could be heard from the hall. Waiting for who would appear, their minds were a mix of excitement, trepidation, and anticipation. An unruly and matted and somewhat sooty mop of silver hair poked its way through the opening, the door sliding out. Kakashi made his way through the doorway. It was then that three things happened in rapid succession. First, the eraser fell, colliding with the Junin's skull and spreading chalk dust everywhere. Second, something clicked and the Cyclops' eye crinkled in irritation as his mind muttered, crud. Third, one orb on both sides of the doorway was launched up. The room was bathed in a blinding white light and resounding, crackling boom. Sakura and Sasuke screamed and grunted in shock as their pupils withered to accommodate the sudden change in light, their ears ringing from the loud sound. Kakashi, at ground zero, had the sudden urge to just whip off his Hitai 8 and use his Sharingan to throttle a certain mad Jinchuriki. Also, why was he hearing a consistent, wah wah wah, in the back of his head? Sakura was the first to regain her composure. What the hell was that? Okay, not so much composure as the energy to lash out her rage at someone.
I didn't think that'd actually work. The eraser was a gimme, but the flash bang was unexpected.
They all looked up to see Naruto removing earplugs and his goggles. His face was a mask of bemused pride. Sasuke rubbed at his eyes, growling at the colorful dots that refused to leave his vision. When did you place that one? As angry as he was for being caught unawares, the way he had not noticed the traps at all was something that he had to find out. Naruto wasn't clever enough to do something like that. Don't you have anything to say for yourself? Sakura had no such qualms. Naruto blinked. I think I used too much magnesium in that mix. Too sudden a flash without bleeding enough off for a more sustained lighting. Sakura's eye twitched. Get the little bastard. Kakashi interrupted before the pinkette could launch herself across the room and pummel Naruto into a broken, bloody pulp. Though later he regretted that decision. Well, he could always wait till the next time. No killing your teammates. I don't get paid enough to explain to your guardians that their wards have become violent murderers of their own allies. Now, meet up at the academy's roof. We'll have a talk. He made his way out the room before poking his head back in. Oh, and just to let you know, my first impression of you all is that I don't like you. He pointed a finger at Naruto. Especially you. You, I hate. Naruto blinked again. Eh? Kakashi stared at his new charges from across the small clearing on the roof. He already knew about them. He had rifled through their academy records, and was particularly aware of both Sasuke and Naruto. But it was that personal touch that would make it easier to gauge their reactions and thought processes and thus make his game plans clearer. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Give me your name, likes and dislikes, any hobbies, your dream for the future, etc. Sakura had finally calmed down enough from the earlier fiasco to collect her thoughts and put forth a reasonable request. The fact that she was sitting right next to her Sasuke-kun had nothing to do with it. Really? What about you, sensei? None of us really know anything about you. Fair enough. The man rubbed his chin. I'm Kakashi Hatake. I don't feel the need to tell you my likes or dislikes. My hobbies are, and my future dreams would only give you nightmares, or the best dreams ever if you swing that way. The three were silent. That doesn't tell us much at all. You're not a very good teacher, are you? HNN. Kakashi ignored the comments. Flapping a hand, he flicked a finger at Sakura. Alright then, you're up first then, girly. Sakura grumbled and then sat up straight. My name is Sakura Haruno. My likes are, at this she snuck a look at Sasuke, a fierce blush staining her cheeks. I hate Ino Pig. As for my dream, well, they instigate next level of blush and add some squeals into the mix for good measure. My hobbies. For some odd reason, Sasuke felt a chill creep its way down his spine. He had the thought to buy some thicker curtains and a dog. A big one. A big one with large, pointy teeth. One with severe anger issues. Preferably one that was put into the pound for attacking people. Maybe the Inuzuka clan had one they'd be willing to part with? Right, stalker fangirl. There always has to be one. Kakashi scratched his cheek. Okay then, next. Sasuke grunted. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I don't have many likes, but I doubt it matters because I hate pretty much everything else. Hobbies are worthless, but I do have a dream, or an ambition, to kill a certain man. Well, isn't he one little ball of sunshine? I can tell this is going to be fun already. Why did he always get the freaks? Never mind the fact that he wasn't exactly normal himself. The Icha called for him, and last, we have Twitchy-kun. How nice, a nickname already. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are ramen, coffee, metaru, and my kinzoku jutsu. The others looked at him in confusion. What the heck were those? My dislikes are when my experiments fail and people who are close-minded. My hobbies are training, practical jokes, gardening, listening to music, and reading. Reading? From the boy who had the intelligence of a rock? Who the heck was he trying to fool? My dream is become Hokage and then take over the world. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. What was that last one? Become Hokage. Right, Kakashi wondered what god he pissed off recently to deserve this. And to round it off, we have a megalomaniacal midget with the world's strongest creature in his belly. Kakashi hated his life. Well, in any case, I want you to meet me tomorrow morning at Training Ground 10 at 8. We'll start our ninja duties then and you'll have your final genin exam. The three pre-teens looked on in shock. Wait, what do you mean test? Didn't we pass ours already? Oh, that was just to weed out the real weaklings from those with actual potential as ninja. This is to determine if the ones left over can really make the grade. He put a hand to his mask-covered mouth, giggling devilishly. Ah, I can't wait for that. What the hell is so funny? Sakura cried out. Ah, nothing, just a little joke that has to deal with the exam. And what's that? You sure you want to know? Finding their expectant faces as his response, Kakashi forced himself not to burst out laughing. This exam is so difficult, the failure rate is over 66%. Out of the 27 students that made it, only 9 will become legal shinobi. Fantastic, nay? You suck, you know that. So I've been told. Anyway, the test is based around survival training, so study up on that. Make sure to arrive early and don't eat anything. You'll probably just puke it up in the end. See ya. With that, the ex-Anbu made a quick hand seal and disappeared from the rooftop, leaves swirling in the void he left. Naruto blinked at the shell-shocked looks on his teammates' faces. They obviously weren't expecting this as well. This certainly threw a monkey wrench into his plans. But if there was anything he knew about wrenches, it was that throwing another into the mix usually had a positive effect. And he had plenty of wrenches. Naruto grinned. I'm home. After the meeting with his new cell members and teacher, Naruto had gone to Ichiraku's for his evening meal. It had gotten pretty late into the day, what with Kakashi being hours late. Once again, Ayame had glomped and cuddled him like an oversized doll. It's not like he minded. The girl often gave him ramen at a discount and sometimes free if she was in a good enough mood. She could do whatever she damn well wanted with him. If only he knew just how much she wanted. Mr. Snugglebuns was not going to be taken away by another girl so easily. Closing the door behind him, Naruto removed his boots and slid on a pair of slippers. Taking in his surroundings, he was pleased to see just how good a job his clones had done on the building. Gone was the decrepit look of a structure that would most likely fall down in a strong wind. Holes punctured everywhere. Floorboards squeaking with every step. Lights tinkling on and off. The very structure shaking under the enormous strain of deadly explosives and weapon caches. Oh wait, that last bit was normal. I greeted him as he made his further into his home. Welcome back, boss. Thanks, he scratched his cheek. Did something happen while I was at the academy? A few of my clones viewed some kind of massacre from outside the apartment. An intruder made his way into your abode. We simply removed him from the area. You didn't kill him, did you? I don't want to have to deal with Jii-san again because some idiot thought they'd get prestige by invading my home. Actually, Jii-san was with the intruder. Something about the person being your new team leader. However, by that time I had already fallen back onto my programming. Naruto paused for a bit. He raised his hand in the air, a foot or so above his head. Tall guy, silver hair, face almost completely covered. Yes. The sun-kissed blonde did nothing before chuckling, which soon turned into blown-out laughter. So that's why he said he hated me. Naruto held a hand to his stomach as pains began to shoot through it. And all this time I thought it might have been because I was a Jinchuriki. Boss? Wiping a tear from his eye, Naruto smirked deviously. That intruder was actually the Junin sensei for my new genin team, Kakashi Hatake. You guys basically blew up the man who's supposed to teach me how to be a better ninja. I apologize for the error, boss. He chuckled again, a high-pitched giggle escaping. Don't be. You did what I programmed you to do. Just remember to enter him into the list of people allowed in the building. He bent down and patted the clank on the head, then stopped. A nasty grin spread from one lip to the other. Add as a supplementary program J6 to his file. As you wish, boss. The Naru-kun's eyes shined as it transferred the data to all of the other droids. When it stopped, its tone held a mischief that creepily contrasted its neutrally crafted skull. You must really like him to add that program to his directory file, huh boss? Naruto shrugged. I do what I can. His smile melted into a kinder one. How's Metaru doing? Is he adapting to the upgrade? He's been sleeping most of the day away, boss. Though I think he should be. I was cut off by the scrabbling of claws on tiled floors zooming towards their position. Yips filled the air as a russet orange shape bolted down the hall at them before leaping through the air and tackling Naruto to the floor thanks to the boy's unsteady stance. Naruto could feel cold-plated metal lapping at his cheek as he laughed, amber eyes staring at him in unbound adoration. Small iron nails dug into his thick clothing, searching for a good grip as a fur-coated tail whipped back and forth. Naruto peeled Metaru off of him, gazing in affection at the small fox-shaped construct in his arms. Not even 2 feet long. His tail nearly the same size as his body, and hardly a foot tall, the small robot barked and whimpered in happiness as his master held him close. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Naruto cooed, Metaru butting his vulpine nose into the lad's chest. Metaru's a good boy. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Metaru was his greatest creation, but more importantly, he was Naruto's companion and friend. The construct was the result of years of labor and research, resulting in a sentient life form that learned and developed the more time it spent in its created existence. In other words, he was the first artificially intelligent creature since centuries ago. Were you a good little fox? Naruto asked. Metaru yipped in response. His smile widened. That's right, Naruto almost simpered. Because Metaru is the best thing in the whole wide world, right up there with ramen. Yes, he is. The little fox had already reached godhood. You must be hungry. You probably haven't a bite all day. He refused to siphon off any of the clones, boss. But I'm not sure whether this was his personal preference or if he couldn't. Well, they are chakra constructs. Even if they carry my astral pattern, their physical bodies don't technically exist. Naruto bit his index finger, tearing off the very tip. Beads of blood began to pool out. They can't really bleed, and too much chakra drainage shorts them out, so I doubt they'd be able to act as a viable alternative energy source. He placed the finger inside Metaru's mouth, who then began to suckle it like a newborn babe. A thin line of blue chakra drew itself into the construct, the blood acting as a medium. Luckily, only a few milliliters was needed to start the process, and the chakra flow increased until Metaru cut it off with a yawn and a smacking of lips. Placing the fox on the floor, Naruto made his way to his study as both the construct and clank followed suit. It was quiet except for the whirring of gears and crackling of electricity while Metaru danced around Naruto like a mad top, gaining small laughs and giggles as his reward. When they reached the book-infested room, Naruto shoved a pile over, muttering curses all the while that he should have sent his clones to do this room first, and sat at his table. The furniture had all manners of objects, devices, and sheets of paper scattered all over it. Oddly enough, it looked like a copy of the Hokage's desk. Little did Naruto know just how quickly he was becoming attuned to the job's most terrible danger and annoyance, the Paper Legion. Metaru jumped into his creator's lap, curling up into a small ball for the blessed warmth, while they climbed the small set of stairs set at the side of the table. Naruto had created it, and many others like it around the building, after realizing that, due to the size of the Naru-kuns, there were a lot of places cut off for them. And being the in facto leader of the crew, was often needed to help discuss plans thanks to the many battle tactics Naruto had entered into the digital database. So, what are we doing, boss? Naruto pulled a few books from the side of him, most labeled as the current year and previous bingo book. I've got another test set for tomorrow that'll determine whether or not I'll actually stay a genin or get returned to the academy. The theme is survival training, so I want to get as much data and preparation as possible. And your teammates? Naruto grinned. That's the best part. Sasuke Uchiha. Rookie of the Year. One of the last living and loyal member of the Uchiha clan. Owner of the coveted and notorious Sharingan. Top marks in all areas of nin arts, though his specialties lied in his clan's particular style of taijutsu and the knowledge of a few fire-style ninjutsu. His most powerful aspect had to be his bloodline limit to copy any jutsus used in his vision. Though his people skills stunk even worse than Naruto's. Sakura Haruno. Top kunoichi of the year. Her academic marks were one of the highest in the academy's history, but her practical marks left her flat on the ground. No physical or ninjutsu attributes to speak of, except for her high chakra control. Instantly an analytical type. She was also tricky as one of the Uchiha's many fangirls. Finally, Kakashi Hatake. Junin. Former Anbu captain. Known as the copy ninja, having supposedly duplicated over 1,000 jutsu. He obviously had a Sharingan as well, though where he got it Naruto did not know. Powerful, quick, and an excellent strategist. But rumor had it he was also lazy, perverted, and always chronically late. This would indeed be a fun time. Gathering brushes, ink, and paper, Naruto reached out before his hand bonked against something. Turning, Naruto saw Metaru had a pair of headphones in his mouth, his pneumatic ears whooshing slightly. Naruto gave a grin as thanks before snapping the headphones on. Metaru climbed back into his lap, and watched in silence as his creator began his composing. And begin. Snapping his fingers, the sound of box air filled his ears. A beautiful melody, once lost, now mysteriously found again. It flowed, like the name of the tune. Naruto's hands danced across the table. It was morning, and two halfway genins were standing around like idiots just where in the hell their other teammate and instructor was. They had come early, they hadn't eaten, they had arrived at the right place, they had prepared for the survival test, they had done everything asked. So where the hell was Kakashi and Naruto? Gra, I'm gonna kill that empty-headed blonde when he gets here. Sasuke, though he did not do so vocally for the fear of getting a gooey Sakura, found himself agreeing with the girl. He didn't really care if Naruto didn't come. The boy was the dead last, after all. But if they did not have a teacher, they could not pass. And if they didn't pass, he couldn't become a ninja. And if he didn't become a ninja, he would never be able to gain all the power to kill his missing nin sibling Itachi. So this statement begs to be said. He was going to punch Kakashi right in his smug face when the man arrived. Yo. Sorry we're late. The two turned to see Naruto beaming congenially at them, while dragging Kakashi behind him by the Junin's legs. Sakura and Sasuke blinked. The man was obviously not enjoying himself, but neither was he doing anything to stop Naruto from the rough treatment. It appeared that he couldn't even move under his own power. What the? Sakura murmured out loud. Naruto laughed as he dropped the older man into an undignified lump on the ground. Kakashi-sensei had a bit of a run-in with some friends of mine, and well. Little metal midget bastards, the copy nin muttered through numb lips, his body vibrating slightly. Naruto frowned. Ya just had to try and get them back, didn't ya? They nearly blew you up last time. Dobi. What did this? The Jinchuriki faced Sasuke, who had both a disgruntled yet intrigued expression. The Naru-kuns. Naru-kuns? I guess you could call them the security system installed in my apartment complex. One of them was rigged with a high-yield electrical line and kind of tagged Kakashi-sensei when he was trying to get revenge for a previous fault. Robot devils, is he going to be alright? Sakura asked. Should be. It was only a few thousand volts. Sasuke grunted. Doby, that would normally kill a person, or at least render them into a comatose state for several hours. Naruto tilted his head. But I get that much power shot into me all the time. This explains so much about you. Whatever. Naruto sat down, leaning the Junin against a tree before pulling a ramen cup out of his pack and peeling off the cover. With quick snap of his fingers, the cup bulged and steam began to rise out. As he began to chow down, Sasakura interrupted him. What are you doing? What? A stray noodle hung from his lips. I was in the middle of eating when Kakashi-sensei burst through one of my windows strapped to the hip and demanding where he could find the shiny, little monstrosities. I'm hungry. But he told us not to eat. No, he suggested we not eat because we might just throw up later. Might, not will. I'm not foregoing my breakfast or the energy from it on the off chance it'll come back up accidentally. Twin growls followed his statement. He looked at the other two genin, both with looks of embarrassment and hunger sketched across their faces. You're kidding, right? Naruto's face fell into tumultuous mockery. Oh, this is great. Two of the top students in the class, and they make one of the worst rookie mistakes ever. Never go without eating unless you absolutely have to, especially before something like this. Sasuke growled. I don't need someone like you to tell me that, Doby. Relax, Sasuke-kun. Naruto waved a hand noncommittally. I'm just giving some advice. Here. He reached back into his pack and retrieved 2 more cups and pairs of chopsticks, tossing them over to the others. They're not the most filling, but they should help somewhat. Sakura turned the cup over in her hand. She had never seen this kind before. The cup was made of metal with a thin sheet of wood on the outside, and the bottom had some unknown runes engraved in it. What is this? It isn't going to explode on me, is it? Because if it does, your ass is mine. Don't worry, Sakura-chan. They're my own special brand, Quick Start Ramen. Just wait a sec. He snapped his fingers twice and steam began to escape from the cup. And how did you do that? Custom seals on the bottom of the cup. Now eat. Not willing to look a gift horse in the mouth with the hunger pangs they were experiencing, they opened their cups, only to be repulsed by the insides. Ew. What in the hell is this? Sakura screeched as she looked at the noodles floating around in a dark black liquid. Naruto drained the last of his cup, licking his lips for residual drops. Ramen noodles soaked in black coffee. You are a freak. Sasuke noted. Hey, I said my likes were ramen and coffee. I just found a way of combining them. The pink-haired and black-haired boy stared at him in disgust. He pursed his lips. Don't knock it till you try it. Besides, it'll give you a boost in energy and should make this whole test easier to handle. Sasuke grimaced at the idea of drinking the foul concoction, but if it meant that he would be better equipped he would do anything. Setting his jaw, he took the cup and downed it in one go, allowing both liquid and noodles to flow into his something without a hitch. Naruto whistled appreciatively. Sasuke let out a small burp as his stomach rumbled in protest. There. Not bad, not bad. But you shouldn't have done it so quickly. You're going to regret it later. Why would I? It smashed into him like when Naruto tore open the outer wall of his apartment's 5th floor. All the vibrant colors, the striking smells, the lilting sounds. His body felt like it was brimming with power. What the? Caffeine rush. Naruto explained. You are going to have one heck of a headache later. He turned to Sakura. Your turn. Just try to take it easier than the boy wonder over here. Sakura scowled at the insult given to her Sasuke-kun but held her tongue. If being with Sasuke meant drinking this, whatever this thing was, she would do it and do it happily. She began to choke down the ramen. Naruto internally leered. Yes, eat the ramen. Let it flow through you. Already they were falling into his clutches. Resisting the urge to laugh manically, Naruto waited until Sakura had finished the entire cup before nodding in approval. Alright then, now that we're somewhat hopped up on junk food and caffeine, I think it's time we start the test. Kakashi-sensei? He asked, turning to the Junin. He's still paralyzed, Naruto. Right, oops. Naruto fished around the many pockets in his coats before he pulled out what looked like a small metallic pen. Touching it to Kakashi, everyone else's eyes widened as an electrical arc raced into the object. When it finished, Kakashi was able to move himself again. Naruto placed the item back into his coat. Obviously there was more to the short boy than met the eye. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. And why didn't you do that before? Naruto grinned capriciously. 'Cause otherwise you wouldn't have let us eaten and shoved us straight into the test at a disadvantage. He leaned forward and waggled his eyebrows. Reeked. Kakashi shook his head. his eye becoming an upside-down U. You're impossible, brat. But I think I'm starting to like you. He stood up and walked over to a stump, placing down a clock. Right then, guess we'll start now. The genin stood at attention. I will set this clock to ring 1 hour from now. In that time span, you must steal one of these bells that I will be keeping on my person. He jingled a pair of bells for them to see. If you manage to steal one, you will pass the test and become honorary ninja. Sakura noted the contradiction. But sensei, there's only 2 bells. One of us will be left out. The man smirked. Exactly. Then that means that one of you will definitely be sent back to the academy. Each of the children seemed shocked at this aspect. Kakashi mentally laughed at their looks. Oh, it was so fun to psychologically screw with these kids. Maybe it was a good thing he had been nominated as a potential teacher. You can use any tools, jutsus, or weapons you may have brought with you. Strike as though you were fighting a real enemy. You won't get shit otherwise. He nodded. Right then. Ready. Naruto removed the headphones from his neck, brought for this special occasion. Set. He snapped them on. And, go. Naruto roared. The sound of heavy metal invaded his ears. He snapped his fingers together. The ground beneath Kakashi surged upward. The idiot is insane. Absolutely and completely insane. Sasuke had hidden himself after the huge explosion hidden right underneath Kakashi was set off, scattering all of them to the winds. Naruto had been laughing like a madman when hell broke loose, snapping his fingers to some odd beat as the ground mutated itself into fiery death. He didn't know what the Dobi had done, but he did know that it was powerful and unexpected. He had to have it for himself. Sasuke had to make a revaluation of the previous class clown. It was clear he had been holding a lot back. To make such a sudden explosion without the use of hand signs or any discernible jutsu. That was something not a complete idiot could accomplish. Though at this very moment that complete idiot was challenging Kakashi to a fight in the wide open clearing after the Junin had wandered back in to try and bait the genin. So it was official. Naruto was just crazy. After babbling on about some stuff or other, Naruto launched himself at the man, devolving into a poor rendition of the academy's taijutsu. When he found his back turned to the Junin, Kakashi had performed his 1,000 years of death jutsu on the boy. What was surprising was not that Kakashi had beaten Naruto so easily, but that Naruto had just poofed into a thin cloud of smoke. So it had to be a bunshin, but it wasn't a normal bunshin, so what was it? These questions weren't answered as a small orb swiftly levitated itself above the boy. Naruto's voice came from inside. Yo! Sasuke wondered if this was what the back of his throat tasted like. Sakura stared at the hovering contraption in front of her. She had just seen Naruto explode into nothing. And now this strange thing was talking in his voice? And Naruto. The one and only. What, is that really you? This ball? No, silly. The orb shook in a good mimicry of laughter. This is just a way for me to communicate with you guys without being spotted by Kakashi-sensei. I call it the Karasu. But how did you find us when sensei hasn't yet? I put a tracer on you. Or rather, had you ingest one. Sakura's mouth went dry. The ramen? Hole in one. Man, I guess that's why you're the top kunoichi in our class. Sakura had to stop herself from blushing. Even though it wasn't a compliment from Sasuke, and it was one from Naruto, she still appreciated the praise. It wasn't often she got it other than from the teachers. But, the tracer. Are we? Naruto anticipated her question. Nah, you don't have to worry about it. It should dissolve in the next couple of hours or so and be completely harmless in passing. But man, I couldn't believe my luck that you guys hadn't eaten. I was worried I might have to trick you or something. Sakura found herself snorting. Really? You? Trick us? You are talking to the #1 prankster in Konoha. I could trick one of the Inuzuka's Inanin to hand over all their bones. The ball bobbed up and down for a second. But that's not important. Right now, I need your help. Sasuke petulantly blew air out his nose. Me? Help you? And why should I? Because if you don't, none of us will pass. This struck the Uchiha Saiyan to the core. He blew his cheeks out and sighed. Explain. Think about it. We were put into a 3-man team, but one of us is, supposedly, going to fail. Yet all the other teams we've ever seen have 3 people in it. It doesn't add up. Why would they bother to break us up into squads just so we could go at each other's throats? It's not Konoha's style. Sasuke thought about it for a second. The Dobi had a point. Even though he himself was enough to beat Kakashi and steal a bell, it didn't matter if the overall goal of the test was something different entirely. He would win the battle only to lose the war. Uchihas did not lose wars, they ended them. So you think he's trying to cause dissension in the ranks for a reason? For something. Think about it. What would we gain by working together if only two of us would pass? Sasuke pieced the shards together. Slowly, it came to him. He's running us through team dynamics, tandem tactics. He wants us to work together despite the risk that we may not all make it. He could feel the smile being transmitted through the communication device. Exactly. So what will it be, Sasuke? Shall we fall apart, or smoosh Kakashi like a bug? Is it worth it to achieve your dream? The boy squared his shoulders and jaw. He would do anything, even if it meant accepting another's weight on his shoulders, if it meant he could catch up to and surpass Itachi. What's the plan? So, you just want me to watch Kakashi-sensei? No, I want you to shadow him. I want his every movement, every step, every turn. I want the exact measurement he walks, the exact angle of his path. Everything. But why me? His voice had obvious hints of self-dissatisfaction. Because you're the best when it comes to mathematics. Simply think of it as geometry. Gauge the way he moves, and then predict based on the facts. If anyone can do it, I know you can, Sakura-chan. And also, the orb moved a bit closer. Think how impressed Sasuke-kun will be with you. That clinched it for her. If it meant Sasuke would acknowledge her, then she would do it. I understand. Good, then we'll start on my command. Naruto knelt next to the clone who was interacting with Sasuke. They both were equipped with wireless transceivers, using both them and the Karasu to hold a four-way conversation. He was glad they were listening to him so easily. Then again, it was the first rule to apply when trying to negotiate or manipulate underlings or enemies. Find out what their buttons are, and then push them like hell. The cage bunshin he had set out against Kakashi was a good distraction when he set the mini-cameras, communication tools out to find his hidden comrades. Though the way it had been dispelled was not pleasant. He still felt the phantom pains around his rear. Oh yeah, he was going to pay Kakashi back for that. To be honest, with the way he planned this out, he really didn't need either of the genins' help. With the cage bunshin, he could do it all on his own without having to worry about their thought patterns. But then that would destroy the entire purpose of this experiment. Naruto wanted to test their abilities, wanted to see what they could do and how much. Also, if he did not work with them, how could he expect them to be loyal minions? No, it would not do at all to ignore the two. Forming a mental 3D image and map of the surrounding area, Naruto pinged Kakashi's location and the various sigils placed all over. Nodding to his clone, which smiled in affirmation, he spoke back into his mouthpiece. All right then, Sakura-chan. Let's get started. We'll show Kakashi-sensei just how strong we really are. His clone echoed to Sasuke in turn. And when it's all said and done, he'll see why we deserve to be more than just genin. We'll conquer all before us. Experiment initiated. Kakashi was bored. None of his students were coming out to play. Sure, he got a little bit of fun with that clone, but it was still just a clone, nothing more than a copy. Even so, it was a cage bunshin, something he did not expect from the recorded dead last. Sarutobi's words came flittering back to him. It would be best not to underestimate him. But what could he expect from someone who only stayed and hid? Flipping his Icha book open, he giggled as the perverse storyline engulfed him. Something moved. Kakashi looked down to see a small orb rolling next to his foot. Barely larger than a couple marbles put together, it didn't appear too threatening. But then he remembered the reports with Mizuki's personal introduction to a bomb blast and the explosion he was caught in earlier, escaping only through a kawarimi. He jumped through the air as it exploded, scorching the earth. Landing softly, he cursed when a click was heard. Dashing to the side, several kunai pierced through where he once was. When he stopped to measure his surroundings, the tree behind him caught fire. It wasn't long before his entire surroundings were a pyroclastic vision of death. No matter where he moved to, some trap was set off. The constant stream of bright lights and loud sounds were doing wonders for keeping his senses all tangled up. He could hardly look one way before being distracted or have his concentration broken by something else. He barely even noticed Sasuke leveling an axe kick at his face until his arm instinctively came up to block. Sasuke let out the dreaded and pompous Uchiha smirk. You seem surprised, sensei. Sakura squealed as she saw her Sasuke-kun put the nails to the silver-haired Junin. He was so cool. And Naruto was almost as amazing. He had listened to her every word, following her directions to where Kakashi moved and shifted. Then he activated the trap set ahead of time. With every step, Kakashi was caught off guard by another trap, twirling the man in a lethal merry-go-round. Maybe they could really do this. They could actually beat a senior Junin, one of the elite. She saw Sasuke twist down in a contortionist's manner, almost touching the bells. He did it. Sasuke-kun did it. Her joy dwindled when Kakashi lurched backwards, avoiding Sasuke's fingertips. No! All that work, all that Naruto had helped with. Naruto had actually done something, and it was ruined as Kakashi would now be on guard. Sakura's eyes widened more when she saw it. Naruto was at Kakashi's back, palms outstretched. Kakashi grunted as he felt a two-palmed strike smash into his back. He hadn't noticed one of the others sneaking up, so focused on Sasuke and disoriented by the traps. He twisted his body and tumbled to the ground. Skidding a couple feet, he got to his knees. Sasuke was panting lightly, Naruto slapping him briskly on the back. Kakashi's one visible eye widened. Did they get the bells? Chancing a look, he found that, yes, the silver musical items were still attached at his waist. He heaved a small sigh of relief. It wouldn't do to be defeated so easily by a bunch of snot-nosed brats. Kakashi let out a grin. Ooh, so close. Looks like your plan failed. Though I have to admit, it was rather unexpected. Sasuke growled but stopped when Naruto put a hand on his shoulder. Looking up, he saw the blonde had a look of victory on his face. What was the boy planning? You think so? Because from my perspective, it looks like our win. You don't have the bells. Sasuke wasn't able to steal them. He wasn't supposed to. The other two males looked at him in surprise. I mean sure, it would have been great if it worked out that easily, but I doubted it would have. Naruto put his hands behind his head. Sasuke may be good and all, but he's still just a genin. Even against someone with their eyes and ears tied up like yours, he wouldn't win with just taijutsu. Sasuke growled at the indirect insult but said nothing. He wanted to see where the blonde was going with this. For a distraction, however, compounded upon all those traps, he's perfect.
Kakashi felt his mouth gape. You used them. You used your teammates. That's not what an honorable shinobi does.
I didn't use them, I employed their skills. They made this choice all on their own. He turned and waved. They turned to see a surprised Sakura approaching them with the flying Karasu at her side and a cage bunshin. The clone gave a thumbs up before popping. Naruto waited for the pinkette to arrive. Sakura, with her analytical skills, gave me your position at all times. It was how I knew where and when to spring my traps. Sasuke, with his superior physical abilities, kept you busy so I could land a sneak attack. And I placed the final blow and learned how to bring our teamwork to the fullest. But that doesn't mean you won. Well, yeah, it kinda does. That palm strike? It wasn't meant to do harm. Naruto's smile drooped into a malevolent leer. It was meant to seal your fate. You know Fuinjutsu, right, Kakashi-sensei? Yes, he didn't like the way this was heading. Then you should know how seals can be applied to any situation, from storage space to attack capabilities. At the moment, you have a seal on your back that, when I activate it, will shock you at about the same level you've received from my darling Narukuns. In other words. Naruto raised a hand, pressing his thumb and forefinger together. You're nothing but a giant lightning rod. We win. We all win. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. You're bluffing. Wanna find out? Naruto grinned, rubbing his fingers back and forth. Sasuke and Sakura watched in suspense. They could not believe this was Naruto standing before them, threatening to electrocute their sensei with mere movement of the hands. Kakashi and Naruto stayed in that staring contest for almost a minute before the Junin shook his head and chuckled. All right, brat, you win. Here. He unhitched the bells and tossed them. You pass. You all do. He turned around. Now get this seal off my back. Naruto grinned and tossed the bells back to Sasuke and Sakura, who caught it with surprise. He then made his way over to Kakashi and placed his hands on the man's back. A pulse of chakra formed and a blue seal appeared on the man before disintegrating away. Naruto clapped his hands together before announcing it done. Kakashi could feel the seal being stripped off. Crap, kid, you weren't kidding. You were going to fry me if I didn't give them up. He winked. A good shinobi always keeps one step ahead. Welcome to the Chikamichi Jutsu. It allows me to plant seals with only the use of my chakra. Quick formation, devastating effect. Sasuke finally broke out of his stupor. Dobi, Naruto, Naruto Dobi. He felt it fine to call the boy that, his actual name, but still with the recognition of his place. Teach me that technique. If he had that power, he could keep his brother off guard and then kill him. Naruto pursed his lips together. He held a hand with all the fingers extended. 5 years to learn it. 2 for learning basic fuinjutsu, another 2 for more advanced study, and 1 for the actual technique. That's how long it took for its creation. Then you actually have to memorize each particular seal down to the tiniest detail. Absolute perfection. That usually takes a week for each one. Sasuke was poleaxed. 5 years? 5 years for one technique? He didn't have the time for that, and he didn't think Naruto was joking on the matter. Sure, the Sharingan, once he obtained it, could copy most jutsus on sight. But fuinjutsu was an art that required heavy study and research, something the Sharingan was not built for. How many seals have you created? Over 100, I guess. 100 weeks. Almost 2 years, Sasuke snickered. He couldn't believe the almost zen tenacity of the boy. Maybe you aren't as stupid as you look. Or sound. Or act. Hey. Naruto closed his mouth. Actually, I can't really argue against that. The others laughed at his admission. He whistled softly and the karasu floated over to him. He clicked his tongue and they dove into his open coat pockets. Kakashi watched in subdued awe. And those are? He did not recognize the devices the boy had used. They were more advanced than other ninja tools he'd seen. You can call them part of my own special brand of techniques, the Kinzoku Jutsu. And those are? That is a secret. Kakashi sighed. Of course. Then would you mind telling me this? How did you figure out the real point of the exam? The others looked at him as well, interested in his guesswork. Naruto pulled a book from his pack and thumbed to a page bookmarked. Kakashi Hatake, Junin. Those that disobey the rules are trash. But those that abandon their allies for the rules are even lower. He snapped the book shut. For someone who quoted this in their section of the bingo book, you have to guess that he values teamwork more than anything else.
I see, Kakashi chuckled. Oh, if only Rin, Obito, and Sensei could see him now, being lectured at by a boy not even half his age. They would never stop teasing him. If that's the case, then fine, you're now all officially genin. Congratulations. A cheer went throughout the newly minted nins. Sakura hugging Sasuke, who hoped she'd stop soon, and Naruto just dancing some stupid little jig. But they stopped abruptly. Now that I've seen what you're capable of, I guess that means I don't have to go easy or play safe. The man cracked the joints in his knuckles, his eye still caught in that same inverted U. I am going to break you. Nothing was said until Naruto fell into a giant whoop, laughing like it was the end of the world. It was here that Sakura and Sasuke realized something. They were screwed. Naruto was also now legally batshit crazy. Oh yes, they were very, very screwed. That's it for part 1. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.